Hello, your channel Eugene Light Novels greets you. I hope you are enjoying these beautiful novels. Now, let's continue with the novel. Before the doomsday comes, I awaken the art of avatars from other worlds. First part. Chapter 1, Waking Up, Apocalyptic Powers. The abyss invades, the apocalypse comes. It has been detected that there is a very rare source of time and space in your soul, and it has been activated for you and integrated into your soul talent. You have awakened a special type of innate ability, a clone from another world. Before disaster strikes completely, please make good use of your soul talents and seize the time to improve your strength. In his sleep, Feng Shi seemed to hear an indifferent and mechanical voice reminding him clearly in his ears. The voice was ancient and without any emotion that humans could understand. It wasn't even indifference. It was just a ruthless message. But the meaning it expresses seems to be engraved in the brain, so clear that it is difficult to regard it as an illusion in a dream. What followed was a strange sense of fear and shock, which seemed to detonate directly in the depths of the soul, instantly dispelling one's drowsiness. Feng Shi suddenly sat up from the bed, as if waking up from a nightmare, with lingering fears. What's going on? Who's talking in my ear? Am I having a nightmare? What a strange and concise dream, just riding on a horse with only a few sentences. Surprised, Feng Shi turned to look out the window. Dawn had just broken on the horizon, and a ray of dawn broke through the darkness. However, it was not yet bright, and the world was silent and dim. You don't need to look at the time to know that it's 5 o'clock in the morning at most. Feng Shi took a few glances at the environment she was in, including second-hand computers, old chairs, single beds, trash cans filled with discarded toilet paper, instant noodle buckets, empty drink bottles, and other items hanging on the wall. Of a handicraft long sword. The extremely familiar scenes all indicate that this is the room he has lived in for many years. Then he thought of something again, and took advantage of the dim light of dawn to get up and go straight to the bathroom. Crack. The lights were turned on, and a tall, thin boy appeared in front of the mirror. Messy and scattered hair, neither long nor short. The resolute and stern facial features are delicate and somewhat cold. In the somewhat sleepy eyes, there are two dark and deep pupils, faintly glowing with the indifferent divine light that sees through the world. Feng Shi's comment on this is, an ordinary face, as handsome as ever, Sai Guanxi, Zhui Yanzu, almost equal to Gino Reeves, only a little worse than his lovely reader's grandfathers. Wake up, it should be an illusion caused by staying up late reading novels. Don't think wildly. You are a time traveler between two lives. Don't be so mediocre. The young man in front of the mirror smiled to himself, picked up his toiletries, and began to brush his teeth and wash his face. He has lived again for 18 years after traveling from Earth to this world. Over such a long period of time, as an orphan, he has experienced a lot, and now he has long accepted his current peaceful and fulfilling life, as if the ability to travel through time has become the most incredible thing in his life. Maybe it was just a dream. An absurd and special dream. As the saying goes, what you think about every day is what you dream about every night. I stayed up late last night and read a novel called The Doomsday Game until I couldn't help but fall asleep. Therefore, it should be reasonable to dream about some weird things. I can dream about such cliché plots as the invasion of the abyss and the awakening of talents. It's really outrageous. This is a real reality. It's impossible to suddenly awaken superpowers or something. It's impossible no matter how you think about it. It's even worse than a system article. Click. The toothbrush in his hand fell off, his self-deprecating thoughts stopped abruptly, and his calm smile turned into an expression of astonishment. Don't blame him for being so gloomy, it's because he saw something extraordinary. At this time, a blurry figure slowly separated behind him in the mirror, gradually standing side by side with him. Then before he could react, the separated figure began to become clear, and soon turned into a complete human image. There is an other him, who has the same body shape as him and 90% similar facial features to him. This scene even looked a little scary, making him shudder. F***K. What the hell is this thing? Just when he was confused, a flash of light flashed in his mind, and he felt blessed and told him the answer in a way he could understand. This actually turned out to be his awakened talent. It's called a clone from another world. The specific effect is, after absorbing enough extraordinary essence, he can create a clone from another world, and then randomly travel to a different world to grow and practice in an idle style, and then simultaneously feed back the power to the main body. In other words, the power, growth and memory gained by the clone in other worlds will be shared with the main body. The stronger the clone is, the stronger the main body will be. When necessary, he can also consume about 1/10 of the extraordinary source of essence used to create the clone, and temporarily summon the alien clone back to the real world, becoming a special and exclusive summon beast. The basic duration of the alien clone summons is 1 day, which is 24 hours. After 24 hours, the clone will automatically return to the time node when it left, and will not affect the activities of the alien clone in the other world. If necessary, the alien clone can continue to stay in the real world after timeout, but the main body needs to continue to consume the extraordinary source of essence to maintain the clone's ability to move in the real world. This ability is not without limitations. First of all, only one otherworld clone can exist in a different world at the same time. There is no way to create more to form a group adventure. The good news is that when the alien clone dies, he can consume about half of the extraordinary source material used to create the clone and resurrect it without damage. It is worth mentioning that during the process of time travel, the clone will absorb a small part of the original power of the different world. This will allow the clone to automatically possess the top talents and qualifications in the different world and a reasonable local identity, and the talents will also undergo some kind of strengthening mutation, making them stronger and stronger. It can be understood that this is a golden finger automatically generated by Apocalypse for them, so that they can practice and become stronger faster. Finally, the most noteworthy point is that after the clone from another world is temporarily summoned back to the real world, items from that world can be brought to him. However, he still has to pay an additional amount of extraordinary source material according to the quality, quantity and amount of extraordinary energy contained in the item, and baptize this item brought from another world, so that the item can be truly used in the real world. Otherwise, even if the thing is not in the clone's hand, when the summoning time is over, it will return to the original plane with the clone. All in all, the integration of this information means one thing, that is, 18 years later, I finally got started. This golden finger feels a bit awesome. Feng-Shi looked at the figure in the mirror and couldn't help but murmur in surprise. The voice in the dream last night was actually real. He really awakened his superpower. For a moment, Feng-Shi was a little too excited, and the plots of various novels she had seen before flashed back into wonderful fantasies in her mind. As a time traveler, it makes sense that my powers are also time traveling, right? I have awakened the art of clones from another world to dominate the world. The abyss is coming, I will bring my avatars from all over the world to save the world. I endure hardship in my own body and enjoy the rewards while I kill the gods at will. Although it is just a fantasy, Feng-Shi, as a veteran bookworm, cannot see that this is a superpower with such great potential. It can be said to be a bug-level existence. As long as he keeps creating clones from other worlds to travel to other worlds to practice and become stronger, he can continue to gain strength, get something for nothing, and win directly. Absorb the power of the heavens and make him invincible. Moreover, the clone can be summoned back to help him do things, making him the best thug. If you think about it carefully, this ability is simply a failure, even more outrageous than the golden finger in the system text. With ecstasy in his heart, he no longer feared, and immediately carefully looked at the alien clones around him. But I found that although he looked 89 times similar to me, his eyes were dull and his body was a little unreal. He knew that this was because the clone had not yet fully formed. Only after traveling to another world will the clone be activated, and then the body and intelligence will be truly gained. As for this first clone, it itself is equivalent to a novice welfare. The extraordinary source of its creation comes from the remaining power after awakening his powers during the apocalypse in his dream last night. It is just enough to create an alien world. Doppelganger. If he wants to create a second clone in the future, he will need to collect enough extraordinary source matter himself, although he still doesn't know where to get this thing from. To put it simply, whether Feng Shi can become a transcendent in the future and the speed of his early development all depend on the luck and hard work of this first clone. Thinking of this, he narrowed his eyes and explained to his clone. The rest is up to you, Feng Shi number 2. Work hard and don't embarrass us time travelers. After saying that, he waved his hand and the clone disappeared out of thin air. He activated his superpower and was sent to an unknown world. Okay, now I just have to wait for the feedback results of the first clone. I hope to give me a powerful ability. It is best to go to a world of high martial arts from the beginning and reach the sky in one step. Feng Shi clapped her hands, with a smile on her lips and full of expectations in her heart. Chapter 2: The First Different World. Everyone changes jobs. Feng Shi, Feng Shi. Wake up quickly. Wake up quickly. Don't you know what day it is today? You actually dare to sleep. The instructor is here. A suppressed voice rang quickly in his ears, awakening Feng Shi's consciousness. He suddenly opened his eyes, straightened his body, and looked at the serious classroom environment around him. Before he could react, he met a pair of eyes that were calm and slightly dissatisfied. It was a middle-aged man wearing a military green instructor's uniform, with a face full of flesh and muscles. He had a fierce appearance, and there was an ugly scar on his face, which diagonally divided the whole face into 2 halves, making him look even more ferocious. Horrible. Seemingly seeing that Feng Shi had woken up, the scar-faced instructor glared at him and said, "Today is the most important day in your lives. It is the day of awakening your talents that will determine the direction of your future life. I know you are very excited, but at this time, you should not be impatient, especially you can't stay up late. When you have enough energy, you can use your best condition to activate your talents." He obviously meant something, and the young classmates in the classroom all knew who he was talking about, so many of them secretly looked at Feng Shi, who was silent and had a look of astonishment on his face. However, everyone could hear that there was not much ridicule in the instructor's words, but a patient warning. The classmates basically didn't mean to laugh, because they were now full of ambition and attention on the upcoming awakening of their talents, and they had no intention of caring about others. So they couldn't see how complicated Feng Shi's mood was at this time after being secretly punished by the instructor. After activation, the alien clone will have intelligence equivalent to the original body, and will also have basic memory due to its initial identity. At this time, his mind was full of thoughts, and he didn't listen to what the instructor was saying for a while. Feng Shi? This is my name in this world, it's almost the same as my real body. The end of the world, everyone changes jobs, and talents awaken. The most important thing is that this world was invaded by the abyss 300 years ago, and the emergence of extraordinary power also originated from the so-called apocalypse. Is there some connection between the 2 worlds? Will the disasters that happen in this world also happen in the real world? There is no point in thinking alone. Feng Shi put away his thoughts and focused on the current situation in front of him. The initial memory shows that the situation of human beings in this world is actually very bad. 300 years ago, the abyss invaded. The abyss's demonic energy polluted the world, causing species to mutate. Countless powerful and strange monsters descended, trying to invade the world. There are too many mutated monsters and abyss monsters, and their strength is too strong. Even if human beings obtain the power of the revelation of world consciousness, every adult can awaken their soul talents and career panels, and begin to gradually master extraordinary power, but they are still in front of monsters. It's just that children who are just starting out have huge differences in strength, so they can only suffer heavy losses and retreat under the attacks of terrifying monsters. In the end, the human race completely lost its surface territory, and instead hid in the underground space, building underground fortresses that never saw the light of day, in order to continue the race and recuperate. In this way, monsters on the surface sneak in along the passage from time to time, threatening the safety of mankind. Even so, the human race has not given up its desire to regain the surface of the earth. It has been working hard to strengthen its own strength, sparing no effort to cultivate powerful combat professionals and accumulate the power to counterattack. This has even become an obsession of the human race. Feng Shi's identity in this world is that of an orphan. His parents are the lower-level guards of the city where the bunker is located. When both died in a monster invasion, he became a martyr orphan. He was adopted by the bunker officials from an early age in a public orphanage and received militarization. Manage. He has just turned 18 today, which is an important moment for him to accept the apocalypse ceremony and awaken his talents. After awakening his talent, he can choose an extraordinary profession that suits him based on his own talent focus, open the career panel, and embark on the extraordinary road. This is a process that every human being must go through when they reach adulthood. In a harsh living environment, the strength of every compatriot must be utilized to the extreme. Teenagers whose talents are biased towards combat will choose to become combat professionals. After systematic training, they will join various branches of the military and go to the battlefield to fight against monsters. Youngsters whose talent levels are too low or who prefer manufacturing will be required to become life professionals and provide logistical support to combat professionals. Of course, talent only represents the reference direction of life. If you must become a combat master, then a young man with insufficient talent can learn combat skills while working and participate in military assessments. After passing the assessment successfully, you can purchase a job change card and become a combat professional. However, the latter does not have initial career bonuses, and the efficiency of learning combat skills is very low. It is very difficult for those who want to change to a combat profession, and they usually end in failure. Even if the job transfer is successful, due to the talent mismatch, the future potential will not be as good as that of a normal combat talent professional. Feng Shi's purpose in traveling to this world is to become stronger, awaken combat talents, and switch to a combat profession to meet his needs. Feng Shi is not too worried about this, because he knows that he has absorbed a trace of the origin of the world when he traveled through time, and his awakened talent must be the highest level in this world, and it will also be strengthened and mutated. And the top talents in this world, even those with manufacturing effects, are fully qualified to switch to combat professions. It is already a certainty that he will become a warrior. This is the calmness that belongs only to the time traveler, even if he is just a clone. Soon, the instructor ended his lecture and said all the things to note. The next step was naturally the apocalypse ceremony. Now, everyone, stand up. With a command, all the young men stood up and stood up straight, like a spear. The instructor nodded with satisfaction and ordered loudly. Go out in an orderly manner, line up in the corridor, form 2 lines, and follow me to Apocalypse Square. The teenagers were already familiar with these instructions. They quickly left their seats, walked out of the classroom, and lined up in 2 rows in the corridor according to height and gender. They had firm eyes and were ready to go at any time. Not only them, but the students in the next class have also finished lining up. The corridor is now full of people, but there is no noise or chaos at all. After waiting for a while, the team in front began to take action, and loud and neat slogans were heard. The leading instructor glanced at the time, turned around and shouted to the students, "Everyone is here. Move forward together." Do you still remember the slogan of our class? The boys and girls shouted impassionedly in unison. Keep your mission in mind and practice hard. Counterattack the surface and take back your homeland. Chapter 3, Professional Change, Apocalypse Ceremony. Celestial Family. The space in the bunker city is actually quite large, much more spacious than expected. It's just that there is no daylight, so the lighting can only rely on lights from various parts of the city and on the rock walls, which looks relatively dim. The majestic underground city buildings, illuminated by scattered and messy light beams, have a somewhat more lonely and desolate feel. However, the space in the bunker is limited, and humans thrive in it, which inevitably makes it crowded, so the city is not very quiet. The queue of young people going to Tianqi Square was huge and long, which naturally attracted the attention of many people. Feng Shi observed the status of these people and found that most of them had pale skin, numb expressions, not many smiles on their faces, and at the same time they looked very busy. It seems that everyone has endless work to do, and they are so busy that they need to hurry up to even look up at the street. Only when they see these students will their eyes show some nostalgia and hope. Presumably, they also thought of their former selves from the young men. Feng Shi knew that the residents who stayed in the city were basically life professionals. Like the parts of the machine, they were assigned a lot of work to provide nutrients for this never-ending plane war. In addition to work, they also have to take over the important responsibility of reproducing the human race. Every couple has a mandatory instruction and must have a child every 2 years, and the total number of offspring must not be less than 5. It is true that they are protected people, but the price of a relatively safe life is an endless boring life and high-pressure work. The living conditions and status and treatment are actually far worse than those of combat professionals. The young man sighed softly from beside Feng Shi. I would rather join the most dangerous surface legion to participate in frontline battles than live such a numb and miserable life. I hope that the Mother of Heaven can awaken me to a fighting talent, even the lowest level. Feng Shi turned to look at the person next to him. He was a strong young man with a slim figure and a rare dark skin. He looks a little plain, but not ugly. He has a relatively honest face, but there is a bit of sharpness in his eyebrows. This is Feng Shi's best friend who grew up in an orphanage and is also his best friend in this world, named Shiheng. He was also the one who secretly woke Feng Shi up in class before. Now on the way to Tianqi Square, Feng Shi was allowed to speak in a low voice, and Feng Shi also casually replied. The Mother of Heaven can only send down the baptism of apocalypse. The specific talent you can awaken depends on you. There is no point in begging her. The Mother of the Sky is the world consciousness that awakened and the abyss invaded this world. The reason why it is called this name is because the name of this world is the world of the sky. When Shiheng heard this, he rolled his eyes at him and cursed in a low voice, I know, you don't need to remind me. Then he said with emotion, every year during the apocalypse ceremony, the proportion of people who awaken their combat talents does not exceed 30%. I don't know how many combat warriors can emerge from the 100 or so students in our class. Feng Shi replied casually, you said it's 30%, maybe 30 or so. Shiheng was angry again, thank you for helping me do the math. Weren't you so nervous yesterday that you couldn't sleep and even dozed off in class? Why are you so calm now? Feng Shi thought to himself, sorry, you can't sympathize with my brother's calmness, but he said perfunctorily. What's the use of being nervous? I can only resign myself to fate anyway. So you just lay down? You don't want this kind of negative thinking. You have to stay calm, brother. Let's do this. If you haven't awakened your fighting talent and I have, you will work hard to improve your professional skills in life and create extraordinary resources such as equipment and potions for me. I will definitely protect you, brother. Feng Shi smiled and did not refute, but just nodded and replied, okay. That's settled then. The school is not far from Apocalypse Square in the center of the bunker. We chatted with each other, and most of them arrived at their destination quickly. This is an empty and huge square, enough to accommodate tens of thousands of people, but there is nothing decorative inside. There is only a circular platform in the center, with complex and mysterious formation patterns etched on it. It is a magic circle used to communicate with the Mother of the Sky. There is basically only one in a bunker city. It seems simple, but it is very troublesome to make. I heard that many conditions and rare materials need to be met. It can be said to be the fundamental cornerstone of a bunker city. They will then go on stage in batches to perform the apocalypse ceremony, thereby awakening their soul talents. The principle is also very simple. After communicating with the world consciousness, these young people who meet the conditions will automatically enter the sight of the Mother of the Sky, and it is natural to grant the apocalypse. There is no need to go into details about the specific process. In short, after several bunker executives gave an impassioned speech in front of the teenagers, the priests who presided over the ceremony began to arrange for the instructors to lead the students of their own classes onto the platform. After the team is lined up, the priest will activate the magic circle and start the ceremony. This process actually ended very quickly. It seemed that the magic circle lit up for a burst of white light, and then the bodies of the teenagers quickly lit up with various talents and auras under the baptism of white light. The aura of a young man who has awakened his fighting talent is a light pillar of various colors with a halo on it. The non-combat talents will only light up the white light pillar and white halo. The greater the number of halos, the higher the talent level. A pure light beam without a halo is just the lowest level F-level talent. There are 7 levels of talent from low to high, F, E, D, C, B, A, and S. Among them, S-level talent is called the Vault of Heaven, which will cause special phenomena, but there is no such thing as a life system. Because even if it is purely a manufacturing talent, you can choose a combat profession if you reach S-level, and the potential is definitely higher than that of A-level combat talents. The platform can accommodate about 100 people, that is, a class can conduct a ritual baptism, which is much more efficient than the method of awakening one by one in other online articles about universal job transfer. Feng Shi observed for a while and found that the proportion of colored talent auras in each class was actually a little lower than 30%. After several classes have awakened, more than 25 are considered pretty good. Judging from the number of halos on the aura above their heads, most of them have low-level talents with 1 or 2 halos. It is very rare for students to awaken B-level talents. Every time one of them appears, it will attract the envious eyes of the students. If there is a fighting talent among them, it will attract the attention and glances of the bunker's senior officials. Soon it was the turn of Feng Shi's class. Everyone took a deep breath and lined up on stage under the instructor's instructions. They were so nervous that they didn't even dare to breathe. As the magic circle was activated, a gentle white holy light lit up under the feet. Feng Shi seemed to sense that there was some kind of unobservable gaze falling here, sweeping over them. Then, without waiting for them to realize it, white or colored light particles began to appear on their bodies and those of the classmates around them, and converged into light pillars above their heads and shot straight to the top of the rock. Above the light pillar, a varying number of rings of the same color began to condense. Feng Shi only felt a gentle voice ringing in his ears. The apocalypse has arrived, the career panel has been activated, and your awakened soul talent level is S-level. The next moment, the golden light pillar rising above Feng Shi's head quickly lit up 6 bright rings, and then the divine light suddenly lit up above the light pillar, transforming into phantoms of various weapons. There are all kinds of swords, guns, swords and sticks, axes, hammers and spears, forming a gorgeous and chilling scene. This scene quickly caused a sensation in the entire audience, and even several high-level experts in the bunker stood up from their seats, looking ecstatic. Golden light, 6 rings, the family of the sky. These weapon illusions are S-level combat talents, weapon masters. Amidst the commotion in the audience, Shiheng, standing next to him, was facing the aura of the white 5-ring. His eyes widened as he looked at Feng Shi's strange vision above his head, his pupils gradually losing focus. Chapter 4, Profession Change, Weapon Master. Chiman Martial God. Looking at the classmates, instructors and senior officials who were noisy and excited because of his talent, Feng Shi only had one thought at this time. Code. So classic. There are articles on the national internet that are so boring. But I have to say, this feeling of being in the spotlight is actually pretty good. Before he could think about it for too long, Shiheng beside him grabbed his arm and shouted with great excitement. F***ku. Madman, you are so awesome. You are going to take off. F***ku. We promised to lie down, but you actually awakened your S-level combat talent. You ride on the horse, I ride on the horse. Looking at his excited and complicated look, Feng Shi frowned. Brother, I understand how you feel, but there is some personal emotion in your words. Damn it, your mother, my mother, we don't have one, so why should orphans embarrass orphans? He stretched out his hand to calm his emotions, looked up at the talent aura above his head, and secretly sighed a pity. White light, 5 rings, A-level non-combat talent, the level is high enough, but it is just one step away from being a warrior. But one thing to say is that he has already made a good start. For a life professional with A-level talent, the bunker official will not train him harder than for a combat professional with B-level talent. At least there is no shortage of extraordinary materials for him to practice. But this also means that his exploitation value is far greater than others, and he will probably be busier than other professionals in the future. Not sure if this kid could bear it, Feng Shi comforted him in the same way he had used before. Stone, what is your awakened talent? A-level, processing talent, forging expert. That's just right. I am a weapons master and I need excellent extraordinary weapons most. You should improve your forging skills and be my exclusive blacksmith. Build and maintain weapons for me. I will protect you from now on. Okay. It's settled then. The sensation caused by Feng Shi was quickly calmed down by the senior officials and instructors, and the apocalypse ceremony soon continued. When he led them off the stage, the smile on the scarred instructor's lips was harder to suppress than AK's, because his class not only awakened more than 30 combat talents this time, but also had a rare A level among the non-combat talents, let alone it said that there is a rare S level blessed one. He feels that his bonus this year will not be less. When the time comes, he will collect money to buy a high-level return potion, which may be able to relieve hidden injuries and return to the surface battlefield. Thinking of this, he looked at Chu Yen as if he were looking at a lucky star. Feng Shi didn't know what he was thinking. After stepping down from the stage, he thought of it and called up his career panel. Name, Feng Shi. Occupation, none. Level, LV0, automatically promoted to level 1 after job change. Talent, Weapon Master, mutation, can be easily used when using any weapon. The damage caused by any weapon is increased by 100%, the attack speed is increased by 100%, and each weapon attack comes with 10% additional real damage, corresponding to the weapon type. The training efficiency of combat skills is increased tenfold. Talent mutation effect, when using relatively unpopular niche weapons or exotic weapons, the additional real damage attached is increased to 30%, and the training efficiency of the corresponding skills is increased by 20 times. Skill column, Basic Fighting, entry, Basic Meditation, entry, Basic Knife Skills, entry, Wilderness Survival, entry. Storage space, 10 spaces, 1 space will be added for each level as the personal level increases. It's a very simple panel that doesn't even have basic thinking attributes, so naturally it's impossible to add points. After changing jobs, an individual's basic strength will increase as the level increases, and will differ depending on the focus of the job. After upgrading, melee professionals will improve more physical strength, muscle strength, agility, nerve reaction speed, etc. Spellcasting professions, on the other hand, improve mental power, will resistance, elemental affinity, and magic quality. The panel does not represent complete digitization, so there is no such thing as health value. To put it bluntly, the existence of the career panel only allows everyone to visualize their progress in getting stronger, so that they can understand their own strength more intuitively. This world is real after all, not a virtual online game. There are energy slots such as magic value and anger value, and corresponding energy slots will appear according to different occupations after changing jobs. For legal professionals, it means magic value, mana value, spiritual power value, etc., while for melee type, it means anger value, fighting spirit value, true energy value, sword energy value, etc. Theoretically, it is possible for warriors to have multiple energy slots, but this situation is generally rare and can be ignored. On the panel, what Feng Shi cares about most is the effect of his talent. The effect of the Weapon Master is not unpowerful. The 3 attribute bonuses in combat are already ridiculously strong, but the most important thing is that the efficiency of martial arts training is increased tenfold. Because the combat effectiveness of warriors mainly relies on various skills. To learn and improve skills, you have to study and hone them yourself. There are no such convenient things as skill books and skill points. Extraordinary professions have a significant increase in the learning efficiency of certain skills, but in the end, it is still up to the individual to practice. Legendary experts above level 90 can create a treasure called a heritage crystal, into which they can instill their understanding of a certain skill. Later generations who use the inheritance crystal may gain this insight and greatly improve the corresponding skill level. But that kind of treasure is too precious to be popularized. Most warriors have never seen what the inheritance crystal looks like, let alone used it. In this case, 10 times the cultivation efficiency is simply cheating. From this point of view, the S-level gifted ones are indeed the losers in this world. However, Feng Shi knew that he was the worst among losers. But after seeing the mutation effect of his talent, he wanted to complain for a while. Using Chiman weapons, the cultivation efficiency is a full 10 times, a full 20 times higher than that of conventional weapons. This is to make him develop in a flashy direction. Feng Shi remembers a joke in her previous life called, "The weirder the weapon, the faster you die." It sounds funny, but it doesn't have a good meaning. He seemed to have anticipated his rough and ominous life in the future. But in the end he gritted his teeth and secretly felt cruel. Die as fast as you can. As long as you can become stronger. Anyway, I'm just a clone. Even if I die, my real body can be resurrected for me, and I can be reborn infinitely. I'm afraid of a chicken. Don't worry about anything, just be done with it. Student Feng Shi, come with me. The city lord wants to see you. Just when Feng Shi was wandering around and was secretly feeling cruel in his heart, a voice pulled him out of his thoughts. When he looked up, he saw the scar-faced instructor standing in front of him looking at him. Feng Shi immediately understood the next plot. Is this because some big shot wants to support my genius, give me benefits, and try to win me over? Humph. It doesn't trouble me at all. Chapter 5, Professional Change. There is no hidden profession, but there is the inheritance of the god of fighting. Following the instructor alone to a house next to Apocalypse Square, Feng Shi met the highest authority in the bunker city where he was located, and he was also one of the most powerful extraordinary beings in the city. The initial memory told Feng Shi that their city lord was a legendary powerhouse above level 90. In fact, the city lords of every bunker city are at least legendary powerhouses. They are both the rulers and the patron saints of the city. The division of levels in this world is very simple. Ordinary people have no levels. After awakening their talents, they are at level 0. After changing jobs, from level 1 to level 10 is the newbie stage for professionals, which mainly focuses on learning, training, and trials. After level 10, you become a formal professional. War professionals need to join the major legions and start going to the battlefield to fight against the abyss monsters. Level 30 is an important level. It requires the warrior to understand the power of elements and awaken his elemental attributes before he can continue to level up. From this step on, the warrior can be considered a strong person. After reaching level 50, there is another level. The warrior needs to integrate the combat skills he possesses and create at least one awakening skill exclusive to him before he can continue to upgrade. This is equivalent to obtaining his own exclusive ultimate move, and his combat effectiveness will be huge. Improvement. Level 70 is another level that requires mastering a higher level element that is more conceptual than the basic elements, such as life, death, destruction, time, space, nothingness, order, cause and effect, fate, creation, etc. etc. Only by reaching level 90 and creating your own legendary combat skills can you successfully upgrade to level 91 and become a legendary powerhouse, also known as the saintly powerhouse. Levels 91 to 100 are called the 9th level of the sanctuary. There are 1 level and 1 stage. The strength gap at each level is extremely huge. After reaching the legendary perfection state of level 100, one has theoretically reached the limit of human power, and beyond that is the state of gods. The number of god-level powerhouses that have appeared in the human race so far does not exceed the number of 2 palms, so the legendary powerhouses above level 90 are already the highest level of the human race. Being summoned by a legendary saint is already a great event for most people. Feng Shi was actually very curious about this legendary figure who was said to be able to move mountains and seas with every move he made. However, after seeing the other party, Feng Shi couldn't see many clues. It seems that the other person is just a handsome young man with a face of about 30 years old, but his temperament is stable and mature, and he also looks like a wise old man. His temperament is very contradictory. But it looks like that's all. There is no coercive aura that makes people tremble at first glance. When he turned to look at Feng Shi, he still had a smile on his lips, looking like a spring breeze, and he was quite approachable. You are the young man who has just awakened your S-level talent? Your name is Feng Shi, right? You are indeed a talented person. The handsome city lord smiled gracefully, stretched out his hand to motion for him to sit on the seat next to him, and continued. I am Nangong Yen, the city lord of bunker number 7. I came over as soon as I received the news from them, so as not to have to call you to see me again and delay your later special training time. He said this as if he were the elder next door, without any pretense. Feng Shi felt comfortable listening to it, but he still said politely. Junior Feng Shi, I have met the Nangong City Lord. I should have taken the initiative to pay my respects, but now I have the City Lord come all the way to see me. This junior is frightened. Ah. Little brother, you don't have to be so polite. If you change the City Lord of any city, if there is a blessed person like you in the city, you will definitely be as impatient as me. Nangong City Lord said, and then said seriously. You should also know that S-class blessed ones are very rare and worthy of the human race's full efforts to cultivate. No matter how much resources are invested, it is worth it. It's a pity that I'm a mage, which doesn't match your talent, so I can't be your mentor. However, I will arrange for you a group of the strongest melee experts in the city to take turns to guide you. You don't have to worry about resources. All aspects are guaranteed. All are of the highest order. But based on your talent, before you go to the rookie training camp, I need to ask you clearly about your future plans for life. Having said this, he paused before continuing to ask. Now there are 2 roads in front of you. Do you want to take the specialized route or the comprehensive route? Feng Shi immediately understood what he meant. The specialization route is to specialize in learning the corresponding martial arts of 1 or 2 weapons at the beginning, rely on 10 times the training speed to first obtain good combat effectiveness, and then kill monsters as soon as possible to increase the level. First, improve the basic strength. If you take this route, the career choice is to choose those melee professions that are more focused on weapon specialization. For example, if you want to learn swordsmanship, you can change to swordsman profession, and if you want to learn swordsmanship, you can change professions to swordsman. To take the comprehensive route, you need to spend more time in the newbie stage, learn more weapons and martial arts, learn as many skills as possible, and improve your own foundation. In terms of career choice, I prefer warriors or fighters who can use any melee weapon. The essential difference between the two is whether to improve strength first or to lay the foundation first. Feng Shi's answer will also determine his specific career in the future. As for hidden professions and so on, sorry, there is no such obscene thing in this world that only exists in online novels and has never been seen even in regular online games. There is no distinction between high and low combat professions, only different emphasis. Whether you are strong or not does not depend on your career, but on your personal qualities. Feng Shi thought for a moment, and although he was more inclined to the latter, he still asked. I wonder what the City Lord's opinion is. After all, he is a legendary strong man, his vision must be higher than his, and his suggestions are of great reference value. Nangong Yen did not give him direct advice, but gave him a detailed analysis of the pros and cons. The advantage of the specialization route is that it can form combat power earlier and start to improve the level faster. However, the potential of talents is less developed and there are relatively few options in the future. After all, the more weapons mastered by a weapon master, the better. The comprehensive route requires you to invest more of your early energy in learning various weapons and combat skills. It will develop later, but it will make your combat effectiveness more comprehensive, and it will be beneficial to your future path. For example, when creating your own awakening skills and legendary combat skills in the later stage, the more and deeper skills you master, the higher your success rate will be. Only you can decide how to choose, but no matter what you choose, I will apply for the top inheritance for you as your starting cornerstone. Hearing this, Feng Shi's eyes lit up and asked, Inheritance? The City Lord nodded and smiled. The God-level experts of the human race have specially prepared the best gifts for the blessed ones like you. I hope you can reach their height in the future. This gift is a God-level inheritance made by them that records part of their skills. Crystal. Most S-level talents will have an opportunity to understand inheritance based on the profession they choose. As for how much you can understand, it depends on your understanding. However, with the talent of the heavenly blessed, they are basically the same. They can get some precious harvest, and that is something that even legendary warriors like us cannot envy. Having said this, he said to Feng Shi with some envy. In your case, the inheritance of 2 God-level experts is more suitable for you. If you choose the specialization route, I suggest you major in swordsmanship, because one of them is a sword god who has entered the realm of gods with swordsmanship. If you choose the comprehensive route, I will apply for the inheritance opportunity of another fighting god senior for you. By the way, one thing I must tell you is that the legendary god of fighting has the same talent as you and is also a weapons master. Hearing this, Feng Shi made an instant decision. Do I need to choose again? The best answer is already obvious. Chapter 6, Job Change. Isn't a beautiful mentor a standard feature? Early the next morning, Feng Shi left the school dormitory and went straight to his classroom. The originally bustling classroom at this time now had only about 30 people left, all of whom were students who had awakened their fighting talents. This is a normal situation. After awakening the talent, the job transfer scroll will be distributed and the job transfer will be completed that day. As for all life professionals, starting from today, they will leave school and work as apprentices in various workshops in the bunker according to different professions. The blacksmith goes to the military factory, the pharmacist goes to the pharmaceutical factory, the tailor goes to the garment factory. It can be understood as an internship. If the professional skills level reaches the standard after the internship period, you can stay in the factory and become a full-time worker, with a stable job and source of income. The official will provide various materials to allow life professionals to continue to improve at work. Skill level. If you fail, I'm sorry, you can go home and fend for yourself. However, in the current dire situation of the human race, they will basically not let go of anyone who can be used, so as long as they don't deliberately want to mess up, it is still very easy to become a regular person. Unless you have a corresponding industrial workshop at home and can return home to inherit the family business, you can also take the initiative to apply for an internship and then resign. For example, most blacksmiths who have a blacksmith shop at home will choose to go home. Although the official also has task indicators for private blacksmith shops, they have relatively more freedom and a more comfortable life. However, this situation is only a minority. In this world, families with such extraordinary manufacturing wealth are considered to be the upper middle class wealthy class, which is not something ordinary people can expect. And even if the family has property, in most cases their awakened talents may not match the family property. To put it simply, the son of a blacksmith shop owner may not be able to awaken his forging talent and become a blacksmith. He may also be a tailor or pharmacist, and he is not allowed to go back to work in his family's small workshop. In this case, his family can only spend their own money to buy more high-end materials, so that he can have more resources to practice, improve his professional skills, and strive to stand out from his peers. As long as you become a high-level living professional, your living conditions and social status will be greatly improved, which is equivalent to changing from an assembly line worker to a technical manager, senior designer, chief engineer, etc. You can also get ahead. Of course, this is not easy. With so many life professionals every year, it is not always possible for a few masters to emerge. Feng Shi and his little friend in this world, Shihang, had already said goodbye last night, so they already knew that he would not appear in the classroom today. However, he did not receive a cold reception. On the contrary, after seeing him entering, the classmates in the classroom greeted him enthusiastically, and their attitude was even a little flattering. This is normal. The students of S-level blessed ones have a bright future. As long as they don't die midway, they are almost certain to become the superpowers that they can only hope to achieve in the future. If they don't build a good relationship now, they will have no chance in the future. Feng Shi did not have the idea of being arrogant about talent. These classmates were all warriors. No matter what happened in the future, they would still be his comrades. There was no need to be too indifferent. He responded to their greetings one by one and joined in their conversation. Seeing that such a great genius like him was so friendly, everyone was in a better mood. Naturally, there was no barrier between people who were already familiar with each other, and they chatted more energetically, and the topic quickly got to the point. Feng Shi, I didn't see you in the job transfer hall yesterday. You should have transferred, right? Can you tell us what career you chose? A classmate asked curiously, which also aroused the interest of others. Feng Shi smiled slightly, and there was no need to hide it. I chose a warrior. After talking to the city lord yesterday, the other party directly gave him a warrior career transfer scroll, allowing him to change his profession to a warrior on the spot. As for the inheritance of the god of fighting, it is still very early. Of course, it is impossible for this level of inheritance crystal to be on his body. He has to apply to the number 1 bunker where the human race headquarters is located. Only after the application is approved, will there be a top powerhouse to escort him. He took the Do Shun's inheritance crystal to bunker number 7 where Feng Shi was and gave it to him to use once. The city lord told him that the next thing he had to do was to accept the special training with peace of mind, learn as many martial arts as possible before the crystals were delivered, and accumulate some insights brought about by comprehending the skills. This would play a role in the inheritance of the domain fighting god. A little bit helps. As for why he didn't wait until his strength was established before using this opportunity, of course it's because this fighting god inheritance is a gift for god-level powerhouses. Its original intention is to provide a better foundation. Naturally, the earlier it is used, the better. After being warned, Feng Shi naturally suppressed her expectations for the time being and prepared to practice hard in the future. The students were not surprised when they heard Feng Shi's answer, they just complimented each other. Wow! Are you really a warrior? We have the same profession. Can I ask Feng Shi for advice in the future? Good warrior. It matches your talent best. Feng Shi-san will definitely soar in the future. After the training, it would be great if I could be assigned to the same legion as Feng Shi. After the compliment, a girl asked expectantly. I wonder what level of experts our current generation of mentors are. Can they reach level 50? Another boy shook his head and said, impossible. The war is tense now. How can an awakening level expert above level 50 be transferred to serve as a mentor for newcomers? An element level expert at level 30 is enough. That's what I said, but the situation is different this year. We have a blessed person like Feng Shi, so the mentor lineup will definitely be different from usual. We might be able to benefit from him. That's the truth, but can you wake up? The next step is to divide the classes into classes. You, a mage, will definitely go to the spellcasting class. Even if you want to take advantage of it, you won't have any share. The energy tank of the magic swordsman is also magic value, so you will still be assigned to the spellcasting class. Nigan. Time flies while talking and laughing. Soon a whistle sounded, and all the newcomers who were on standby in the class looked tense. They quickly ended their conversations and went out together to gather in the playground. Feng Shi knew that the next step was to divide the classes into different classes. At this time, there were already many tall figures standing on the playground. Some of them were instructors who were employed by the school, while others were new faces that they had never seen before. Feng Shi knew that they were more powerful professional experts than the retired instructors. They were usually on the battlefield and were only called back to teach them during the annual training period. Yes, the current war situation of the human race is so tense. The powerful high-level combat forces are all deployed in this way. Like in the novel, there are a large number of awesome high-level experts stationed as teachers in the school. In this the world is a luxurious fantasy. Feng Shi's eyes wandered around these strong men who had just come off the battlefield and still carried fierce murderous auras, guessing which of these people had been specially arranged for him by the city lord. As a result, soon their eyes met with sharp and somewhat teasing glances. Feng Shi was stunned for a moment, but then he saw a female professional standing in the corner, far away from other instructors, looking a little lonely, with her arms folded across her chest, lazily leaning against a tree trunk, and mouthing something. Holding a toothpick in his mouth, he looked at himself with a smile. Wearing a leather trench coat and leather armor, a long-handled giant sword is slung across his back, and a long sword and a straight knife are hung on his waist. She has black hair tied into a refreshing high ponytail, a tall figure, exquisite and beautiful facial features that are impeccable, and a touch of heroism between her eyebrows is a key bonus. There is no doubt that this is a stunning beauty, just like a heroic female general. From the look on her face, she made no secret that she was here for Feng Shi. However, Feng Shi couldn't help complaining in her heart at this time. Code. So classic. I understand this very well. She is almost a standard beauty tutor in online articles. Most of the harem heroines will become the protagonists in the future, which is not surprising at all. But I'm a clone who is only responsible for getting stronger. What's the point of giving me this standard equipment? Stop doing these fancy and useless things. Women will only affect the speed at which I become stronger. Chapter 7, Job Change. You can get started and master it as soon as you learn it. Under the auspices of the principal, the thousands of warrior students on the playground quickly completed the class division process. It is mainly divided into two types: physical warfare class and spell casting class. Careers with physical damage are divided into the former, and those with legal damage are divided into the latter. It's clear at a glance. At the same time, there are still about 100 people in each class, and each department is divided into 5 classes. The higher the talent level, the higher the class number. Naturally, someone like Feng Shi is assigned to the physical warfare class. Afterwards, the tutor of each class came over and made a brief self-introduction before taking his class away. To Feng Shi's surprise, the chief officer responsible for teaching Material Warfare Class 1 was not the tall beauty, but a 2-meter-tall strong man with muscular build, old-fashioned face, and a beard like an iron tower. His name was Zhang Zhenyue, and he was a level 55 warrior. His level was much higher than that of the 30 level or so bishops in other classes. The students in Class 1 were secretly thankful and looked at Feng Shi gratefully. They are not fools, they all understand that they have been favored by this heavenly being. Feng Shi did not respond to them. She only thought that she had misunderstood just now, or that the Mother of the Sky heard her complaints. He did not dwell too much on this matter and focused on his first training class. My profession is a warrior. I specialize in long-handled weapons and heavy blunt weapons. I mainly focus on 3 categories: halberds, battle axes, and heavy hammers. However, I also dabble in long knives, so I suggest that you also choose these types of weapons. Majoring in it is more convenient for my teaching. As for sword weapons and short weapons, they are not suitable for newcomers like you. Most of the monsters you will encounter in the future are cruel and arrogant. Before the strength is formed, short weapons with insufficient power may not even be able to break through defenses. It is far worse than the benefits of cultivating heavy weapons are huge. Now, I'll start with heavy blunt weapons, which are the easiest to learn. Let's learn this first in the first class today. As he spoke, he took out a ball-headed weight from his storage space. It's not the exaggerated big round hammer used by Li Yuanba in the TV series. The actual hammer head of the hammer weapon is not that big, only a few circles larger than an adult's fist. Such a weapon is more convenient to use and has sufficient power. Even in the extraordinary world, if you want to increase the weight of the hammer head, you can start with materials and enchantments. There is no need to sacrifice flexibility. The chief officer began to teach, introducing in detail the modeling advantages and key points of use of this type of weapon. The students also each received an ironwood round hammer used for teaching. They stood at a distance from each other and tried to follow the instructor's movements together. Unlike other students who were awkward and unorganized, Feng Shi's movements almost completely copied the instructor's instructions. Every swing was precise and impeccable. Feng Shi himself also discovered that the first time he picked up the weapon, he felt that his senses were stretched, as if the round hammer in his hand had become a part of his body, and he felt as if he had used it thousands of times before swinging it. No harsh feeling. It's just magical. Others naturally noticed this, and the other students expressed great envy and felt inferior to him, while the instructor who had been paying attention to him had a complicated look on his face. Even a veteran professional like him would secretly lament the unfair fate after seeing this kind of exaggerated talent. After the class, Feng Shi listened very seriously and was intoxicated. After it was over, he put down the teaching weapon and called up his personal career panel with emotion, only to find that there were 2 new skills in the skill bar. Basic blunt weapons, Introduction. Hammer weapon specialization, Beginner. Good guy, before I awakened my talent, I had to learn fighting and swordsmanship for several years before I could barely reach the entry-level level of the 2 basic skills. Now I just took 1 class and mastered the 2 basic skills. Although there is a corresponding skill learning efficiency bonus after switching to an extraordinary profession, Feng Shi knows that more of it is the effect of the weapon master's talent. He is now vaguely aware of the power of this talent. The proficiency levels of basic skills are divided into 6 levels from low to high: entry level, proficiency level, master level, perfection level, palace level, and legendary level. I heard that there is a god-level powerhouse above the legendary level that can be involved. The realm of gods does not fall into the regular levels. Entry level means that you have learned it and will not cause side effects when using it, such as hurting yourself. Upgrading further will start to add attribute bonuses and skill special effects. For example, mastery level basic sword skills will provide additional attack speed and slashing damage, and furthermore, special effects such as armor breaking, bleeding, and ignoring defense will be added. Blunt weapons have additional effects such as dizziness and internal injuries. The higher the level, the more difficult it is to upgrade, and the higher the level, the more difficult it becomes. Generally speaking, reaching the master level of proficiency is already very impressive. Most warriors do not even dare to expect to have the basic skills of majoring in weapons. Cultivation to the level of perfection. Starting from the palace level, that is the realm pursued by the venerable level warriors above level 70. Feng Shi was just a newbie, but he learned 2 basic skills in just 1 lesson. This was also a very exaggerated thing. I don't know how many people would break the defense. Presumably, at this speed, the subsequent levels of skills can also be improved very quickly. Even if it is legendary level proficiency, he can definitely think about it. Just when Feng Shi was secretly feeling proud, the bishop who had not left after class shouted to him. "Student Feng Shi, come with me." Feng Shi was stunned for a moment, and then followed him away obediently, all the way to his office. As soon as I walked in, I found a group of people already waiting inside. If you look closely, you will see that they are all the familiar instructors you saw on the playground before. Among them, the heroic beauty with a high ponytail sat carelessly on the table, her long legs crossed, and she still looked at him with that teasing smile, which seemed a bit condescending. Feng Shi immediately understood that she was not inappropriate as her own mentor, but just as the head coach of the entire class. In other words, she is her own private female teacher. Immediately, Feng Shi thought of something again, and turned to the other instructors in the office who were also looking at him, and naturally understood that they were too. As expected, Zhang Zhenyue introduced him one by one. "Student Feng Shi, according to the above arrangement, after you finish class in my class, you will also receive one-on-one guidance from these instructors. During the training period, they will work with me to carry out special training for you. Now let me introduce to you, this is Religious Officer Li Jin, a level 50 fighter, who is responsible for teaching you marksmanship and riding skills. This is a tall, thin man with an upright posture, middle-aged appearance, and can be considered handsome. This is Instructor Shi Feng, a level 52 hunter, responsible for teaching you wilderness survival skills, bow and arrow usage skills and basic spear weapon skills. This is a young man with a wild smile on his face, who looks very aggressive. This is Instructor Lu Jun, a level 51 assassin, who is responsible for teaching you basic skills such as agility, hidden weapon techniques and short weapons. A short young man wearing black clothes and a hood nodded slightly to him with gloomy eyes. This is Instructor Wei Wu, a level 54 fighter. He is responsible for teaching you the basics of fighting and stick weapons. A bald man with a calm temperament, wearing a martial arts uniform, gave him a gentle and restrained smile. At last. Having said this, he paused, his tone was a little respectful, and he solemnly introduced the heroic beauty to Feng Shi. This is Venerable Yin Li Yuyin, a level 90 peak swordsman. She will be your swordsmanship instructor. We must use her as the main instructor in the course arrangement, and you must not be rude. Feng Shi was stunned for a moment after hearing this. Level 90 peak sword master. In other words, she is a quasi-legendary powerhouse who is stuck at level 90 and only needs to master legendary combat skills to become a legendary saint. Such a person's strength and status is only lower than that of the legendary strong man. Unexpectedly, the city lord can actually invite such a strong man to be his teacher. This is a big favor. Yin Liue opened her mouth at this time, and said in a casual tone. "I'm not interested in the course schedule. Lao Yu, you can just make the arrangements yourself. But, young man, I must remind you that you must be mentally prepared to endure hardships when training under me. I don't have much patience, so the training method will be very rough and the intensity will be very high. If you can't stand it, you have to bear it. If you dare to complain, even if you are a favored one, I will still deal with you. Screaming, do you understand? After listening to this, Fengxi not only was not afraid, but opened her mouth, showed a somewhat unrestrained smile, bowed her hands, and said, humbly, Junior understands. Please come over, Master Yin, and all the instructors, and train me to death. If I can't let this junior scream, don't blame me for complaining to the city lord, saying that you are not teaching attentively. As soon as these words came out, the instructors were all stunned for a moment, and then the expressions on their faces gradually became playful, and their eyes became a little more interested and dangerous. Yin Liyue laughed even more arrogantly. Okay. 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 I just like to train a brat like you who doesn't know the bounds of heaven and earth. If I don't make you happy, my surname will not be Yin. There's no need to wait, let's start now, you come with me, I'll give you the first lesson first. Fengxi heard this and didn't care at all. It's impossible for them to really train themselves to death on purpose. Young master, I am an infinitely resurrected clone, can I still be afraid of you? As long as you can't practice to death, practice to death. Chapter 8, Job Change, Devil Training is not enough, why are you secretly training more? 3 nights later, Fengxi finished class and walked back to the dormitory with an expressionless face, holding a dark piece of dried meat in his hand and chewing on it. Each bite was forceful, even a little ferocious, as if this piece of dried meat had a blood feud with him. His steps are slow and firm, but if you observe carefully, you will find that his calves are actually shaking slightly, as if they are cramping. It is only he who controls them so that his steps do not appear abnormal. In fact, he looks normal on the surface now, but in fact his whole body is unbearably sore and the muscles in his legs are also very sore and swollen. As for why this happened, he naturally asked for it. Ever since that day when he uttered wild words to his private instructors in the chief instructor's office, his training career had started going into hell mode. That afternoon, 5 instructors except Zhang Jinyue arranged almost rigorous private training courses for him, leaving him with almost no time to rest during the day. The intensity of each class can be called a devil special training, and his body is pushed to the limit to punish him. After one class, he took a sip of water before heading to the next class, deliberately not giving him a chance to breathe. It doesn't matter if his body can't bear it anymore. These powerful warriors have many ways to squeeze out his physical strength. Recovery scrolls, stamina potions, energy potions, extraordinary food, as well as various battle cries, blessings and other status skills were all given to him in turn, allowing him to have the energy to continue attending classes no matter how much torture he suffered. Every day, Fengxi felt like he was enduring inhumane torture, and every class was like a year in his eyes. If it weren't for the fact that his own strength was getting stronger crazily, which brought him a huge sense of satisfaction, he really couldn't hold on and couldn't help but want to surrender. Under this kind of crazy extreme training, his gains are also amazing. In just 3 days, his skill bar changed drastically. Name, Fengxi. Occupation, warrior. Level, LV1. Rage value, 100 out of 100. Talent, weapon master, mutation, can be easily used when using any weapon. The damage caused by any weapon is increased by 100%, the attack speed is increased by 100%, and each weapon attack comes with 10% additional real damage, corresponding to the weapon type. The training efficiency of combat skills is increased tenfold. Talent mutation effect, when using relatively unpopular niche weapons or exotic weapons, the additional real damage attached is increased to 30%, and the training efficiency of the corresponding skills is increased by 20 times. Skill column, Basic Fighting, Mastery, Basic Meditation, Beginner, Basic Swordsmanship, Mastery, Wilderness Survival, Mastery, Trap Cracking, Beginner, Basic Stick Skills, Mastery, Basic Swordsmanship, Mastery, Basic Blunt Skills Weapons, Mastery, Basic Short Weapons, Mastery, Basic Bows and Arrows, Mastery, Basic Marksmanship, Mastery. Basic Shield Guards, Mastery, Basic Hidden Weapons, Mastery, Basic Soft Weapons, Mastery, Hammer Weapon Specialization, Mastery, Stick Weapon Specialization, Proficient, one-handed sword specialization, proficient, short sword specialization, proficient, great sword specialization, proficient, long knife specialization, proficient. Short sword specialization, proficient, scimitar specialization, proficient, dagger specialization, proficient, shield specialization, proficient, gun weapon specialization, proficient, axe weapon specialization, proficient, spear weapon specialization, proficient, whip weapon specialization, mastery, soft sword specialization, mastery. Forked weapon specialization, entry, hook scythe specialization, entry, chain specialization, entry, finger tiger specialization, entry, claw specialization, introduction, multi-cheek nun specialization, introduction, ring blade specialization, introduction, riding skills, introduction, vast sea breathing technique, introduction. Basic movement techniques, introduction. Active combat skills, fearless war cry, entry level, rage burst, entry level, raging strike, mastery, heroic crash, mastery. Storage space, 11 spaces. Open the personal panel, and a dense collection of basic skills appears in front of you. A large number of proficiency level words are enough to blind any newcomer. Generally speaking, if one or two of the basic skills that a warrior majors in reach the proficiency level, they have met the minimum graduation requirements during the training period. They can start participating in trials and kill low-level monsters to start improving their levels. After reaching the 10th level, even if you leave the newcomer stage, you can join the Legion and participate in formal battles. And he had only started special training for 3 days, and he had already upgraded so many basic skills to the proficient level. Even with the blessing of the weapon master's talent, this kind of achievement can be regarded as shocking. Feng Shi has suffered so much torture and still does not regret his original decision, precisely because of this huge result, because the results have told him over and over again that his choice is extremely correct. Of course, achievements are achievements, and it doesn't affect his ability to curse when he is alone. However, today's special training was not over yet, so after hurriedly replenishing his energy, he hurried back to his dormitory, took out a black pill and swallowed it. This is one of the extraordinary medicines that Yin Liue gave him to nourish his body and restore his energy. It is also an extraordinary resource subsidy assigned to him by the city lord. After taking it and taking a nap, he will be able to completely eliminate fatigue and restore his energy when he wakes up. He can also be here in the process, physical fitness is strengthened. The more tired and sore you are before taking it, the better the effect of the medicine will be, and the higher the degree of strengthening. It is an advanced cultivation resource that ordinary newcomers cannot enjoy. Feng Shi took the pills and fell asleep. After a while, she looked like a dead pig without even taking off her clothes. However, he only slept for 2 hours when he was awakened by the alarm clock set by his bedside. As soon as the bell rang, he opened his eyes instantly, stopped the vibration of the alarm clock with a palm, got up quickly, pulled out a large box from under the bed, took out several weapons from it, and then took an outdoor lighting lamp from the table, turned around and left. A chain was wrapped around his body, a soft sword was tied around his waist, a ring of swords was carried in his left hand, and a nunchuck was held in his right hand. He asked his best friend Shiheng to build these for him. They were quite rough. They were not even considered as whiteboard weapons, and they were not even used to attack. They could only be considered as semi-finished products, but they were enough for practice. The reason why it was not put into the storage space was naturally because the 11 storage compartments were already filled with other cultivation resources. After going out, no one could be seen outside, because it was late at night and almost everyone had rested and fallen asleep. Although the sky is not invisible in the bunker, there is still time. The senior management has set a work and rest time, which is divided into day and night just like on land. Public lights in the city will be turned on during the day and turned off at night so that everyone can rest. So except for factories that work in 3 or 2 shifts, most people in the city are sleeping at this time. The reason why Feng Shi didn't sleep was because he had to give himself extra training. In addition to the courses arranged for him by the instructors, he also wanted to use the mutation effect of his talent to teach himself various niche weapons, even weapons that did not exist in this world. He practiced in school from the beginning. After a day's rest, he went to the playground to tinker with these strange weapons. However, on the first day, he was scolded by Yin Liue, dragged into 2 extra classes, and strictly prohibited from focusing on these weapons anymore. Feng-shi understood her thoughts and did not complain because he knew that she was really doing it for her own good. It's very simple. These strange weapons are of little use in this world, so naturally there are not many supporting combat skills left. If you focus on these weapons, the benefits will be far less than other conventional weapons. She decided that Feng-shi was wasting his time by doing this, mainly because she didn't know the mutation effect of his talent. Feng-shi couldn't tell her this, because this kind of talent mutation had never been heard of in this world, and he didn't want to be used as a guinea pig for research. So he chose to go back to rest after class during the day, and at night, when it was dead of night, he would secretly go to a remote place where there was no one to continue practicing Chiman weapons, so as not to be seen by the instructors again. Because the living space in the bunker is limited, such a place is not easy to find, so the place he chose for secret training is also a bit underworld. Soon, he came to a gloomy cemetery. Chapter 9, Job Change, First Actual Combat, Unexpected Discovery. There is no small movement of Feng-shi practicing strange weapons, especially whips and chains. Therefore, in order not to disturb the rest of the hardworking people, ordinary open space is not enough. It must be far away from residential areas and remote enough, where most people will basically not go at night. After much thought, there is no better choice than a cemetery. And Feng-shi did the same thing these past few nights. Fortunately, the school is not very far from the cemetery. It only takes about 10 minutes to get there. Just be careful when climbing over the wall. After 3 or 4 hours of extra training, he would secretly go back to school and take another pill to catch up on 2 hours of sleep, which would basically not affect his classes during the day. During this sneaky additional training, even without the guidance of a famous teacher, Feng-shi still figured out many usages of cold weapons and combat tips, and also learned several basic skills by himself. Although most of them are only entry-level, the whip weapon specialization and soft sword specialization have reached the mastery level. This is unthinkable to others, but it makes sense to Feng-shi. Because many things can be understood by analogy, the many basic skills he learned also played a huge help in his own development of the use of Chiman weapons. Coupled with the 20-fold practice acceleration effect brought by talent mutation, it is not outrageous to be able to create basic skills so easily. And as Feng-shi practiced in depth, he also discovered an unexpected surprise that shocked him. The Weapon Master's training acceleration effect actually has deeper potential that can be tapped. To put it simply, it is a card bug. The talent effect is that the training efficiency of conventional weapons is increased by 10 times, and the training efficiency of strange weapons is increased by 20 times. However, what is not stated is that if the weapons Feng-shi practices are both conventional weapons and niche strange weapons, nature, the practice acceleration effect will be superimposed, reaching a more terrifying 30 times. He didn't realize this at first. It wasn't until he was practicing the use of soft swords and nunchucks that he found that his proficiency increased too quickly. He also discovered basic sword skills, long sword specialization, basic stick skills, and stick skills. The proficiency of several basic skills such as weapon specialization was also improved, and then I realized something was wrong. After some research, he came to this conclusion that made him ecstatic, and he became more determined to practice Chiman weapons. Even if it was not for other reasons, just to promote the improvement of other related basic skill levels, he could not relax his practice of Chiman weapons. Even when practicing Chiman weapons, his enthusiasm was even higher than during the day. During the day, the instructors forced him to torture him, but at night, he was driven crazy by the desire to become stronger and practiced hard. It can be said that the reason why the proficiency of these basic skills can be broken through so quickly is that the linkage benefits brought by practicing Chiman weapons are also one of the important factors. Because he is the only one who understands the importance of practicing Chiman weapons, Feng-shi practices wholeheartedly even if there is no one to supervise him, even more focused than during the day. But it was also because he was so focused that he didn't notice that the cemetery tonight was a bit more eerie and weird than the previous 2 days. Just as he was practicing the 4 strange weapons he brought in sequence, a little mist gradually appeared in the corners around the cemetery, seemingly disturbed by his movements. Because the light was too dark, Feng-shi never noticed it. Only when the fog completely surrounded his location did he realize something was wrong. He quickly clenched the weapon in his hand and looked around vigilantly, his eyes a little stunned. This is... The next moment, the ground in the cemetery suddenly cracked and shattered. Withered arms stretched out from the rocks and struggled to destroy the ground. Skeleton monsters emitting stench and dark green mist emerged from them. Some of them still have some shriveled and black flesh hanging on them, and most of them have only skeletons left, but with the blessing of the dark green mist, their bodies gradually change from stiff to flexible. There were probably more than 30 of them in number. Because of their appearance, the air was filled with a smell of corpses. Feng Shi's face changed when he smelled it, and he felt like vomiting. This undead mist is poisonous. Its plague transformed bones. Feng Shi immediately thought of the knowledge taught in class and knew that this was an undead monster derived from a corpse contaminated by the abyss's evil energy. It was born with undead poisonous energy, and its initial level was between level 8 and 10. Even the skeletons buried deep underground may be infected and mutated by the infiltrated abyssal demonic energy. Therefore, this type of monster is one of the monsters that may be encountered in the underground city, so it is not surprising that it would appear here. Even though they are just skeleton monsters, they are out-and-out low-level monsters with high magic energy. Not to mention their own magic aura, their bodies powered by magic energy are also much tougher than they look. The key is that he is agile in movement and can fly over walls. He is not the same species as the artificially created cannon fodder undead in the trial field. Knowing the danger of these guys, Feng Shi threw out the ring blade in his hand without saying a word, spinning it and cutting into the neck of a skeleton. However, before half of the opponent's body could struggle out of the ground, he suddenly knocked away the flying ring blade with a wave of his hand, and then let out a ferocious roar at Feng Shi. There was no sound, but the air was distorted in circles. Feng Shi suddenly felt a slight dizziness in his head, as if he was seasick, and the movements of his hands became slightly paused. Taking advantage of this opportunity, these undead monsters immediately accelerated their efforts to escape, but Feng Shi suddenly let out a roar, which also caused the air to vibrate. The exclusive skill of the warrior profession, fearless battle cry. After roaring, the minor mental negative states, such as fear, charm, etc., of oneself and nearby allies are relieved, which increases the anger recovery speed of oneself and nearby allies, increases abnormal resistance, and causes trace damage and shock effects to surrounding hostile targets. After a war cry, Feng Shi returned to normal, picked up the iron chain in his hand and threw it at the undead. The previous ring blade was not sharp and did not pose much threat to these undead monsters. He could only try to use blunt blows. This idea is correct. Blunt weapon damage is more suitable for dealing with undead creatures. Since the plague skeletons have undead poisonous gas, it is not easy for newcomers to get up close, so long-range blunt force strikes are the best choice. But he underestimated the level gap between the two sides. There was no heavy object attached to the end of this semi-finished chain that was not even a weapon, so hitting them was not considered a heavy blow. However, Feng Shi's attack still caused some damage to them, causing them to let out angry roars. This is because the attack bonus and real damage included in Feng Shi's talent effect have taken effect. Each attack of Chiman weapon brings 30% real damage. This part of the damage ignores the target's defense, even ghosts without bodies can do it. No exemption. However, this attack did not cause them to lose any of their members. Feng Shi also knew that he was only at level 1, and it would be a dream to kill a group of real monsters of level 8 to 10 with one blow, so he did not hesitate to take advantage of them before they could completely restored to freedom. He dashed towards the exit of the cemetery with a heroic dash and quickly rushed out of the encirclement. A plague-changed skeleton that had just escaped swooped to block his way, but he thrust out the pitchfork in his hand with the force of a charge, and sent it flying violently. The next moment, Feng Shi rushed out of the encirclement. While running wildly, he suddenly pulled the chain, causing the end to fly back. He didn't know how to use his head, so he reached out and grabbed the end of the chain in his hand, and then took out a short-handled, round-headed hammer from the storage space with his free hand. The movable lock at the end of the chain is firmly pressed onto the iron ring at the end of the hammer handle, and a meteor hammer is completed. Just at this time, there were undead behind him running out of the cemetery and chasing him. Feng Shi said nothing, turned around with a sharp shake of his head, and the meteor hammer flew away like a meteor, hitting an undead hard. With a bang, the chasing body of the undead flew upside down on the spot. The physical heavy hit plus double damage plus 30% additional real damage caused the body to shatter on the spot and fall into pieces in pieces. At the same time, a few points of Yin Yin's brilliance flew out from the wreckage and quickly fell into Feng Shi's body, causing his body to light up with a burst of holy white light on the spot. Chapter 10, Job Change, Card Level Equipment. In this world, extraordinary people who have been baptized by the apocalypse and have professional templates can automatically extract the pure energy in the monsters after killing monsters and turn them into experience points, allowing the professional level to be improved. This in itself is one of the blessings of the Sky Mother to mankind. These experience points are not fixed. Killing monsters by leapfrogging increases the efficiency of purifying experience points and generates more experience points. Feng Shi killed a level 10 undead monster with his initial level 1 strength, and the experience gained was not a small amount, enough for him to upgrade directly. However, just when the upgraded light was about to shine, a stone worn around Feng Shi's neck emitted a burst of black light, and actually forcibly suppressed the upgraded holy light. But Feng Shi was not surprised, because he had known it for a long time. This is a special piece of equipment specially prepared for newcomers to the heavenly blessed, called Genius Forbearance, which can suppress upgrades when the wearer has enough experience. As long as you wear this piece of equipment, no matter how much experience you gain, it will not automatically upgrade. This was given to Yin Liue on the first day of class. The purpose was also very simple, to ensure that he would not accidentally increase his level before the inheritance of the God of War was delivered. After all, it is best to understand the fighting god inheritance at the first level to maximize the benefits as much as possible. It has nothing to do with the training. Even if other students reach level 10 or above during the training, the instructors will only regard it as a good thing. If he fails to upgrade, his basic strength will not improve, but Feng Shi has no regrets at all. While using basic movement skills to continue running forward, he pulls the chain hard to swing the meteor hammer in a circle, and then attacks another chasing plague. Turn into a skeleton and smash it at high speed. The speed was too fast, and the undead who was bent on pursuing it had no time to dodge. They tried to cross their arms to resist the blow, but they were still smashed apart by the hammer. This seemingly ordinary meteor hammer is simply incapable of defeating these ghosts. The difficult undead poison gas has no effect, and the force of the swinging meteor hammer is enough to break up their skeletal bodies that have been forcibly consolidated with magic power. Even the real damage caused is just enough to ignore their last demonic gas defense and destroy them that have just recovered. Frail ghost. Everything is controlled just right, so it can produce such a devastating effect. If not, these ghosts would be a bit troublesome for even a level 10 ordinary warrior to deal with one-on-one. But even so, Feng Shi still didn't dare to neglect at all, because there were too many undead and the attack speed of the meteor hammer was not high. If he stopped and faced them head-on, Feng Shi would soon be overtaken by them. Once he is surrounded, he will be in danger, and he will have to shed his skin even if he doesn't die. During the break in the attack, Feng Shi glanced back, only to find more than 20 misty undead chasing after them vigorously. Some of them were running wildly on the street, some were swinging their feet rapidly, and some were simply lying on all fours like hounds. Generally, others jumped on the buildings on both sides of the street, jumping as high as they could, and some could even walk on the walls regardless of the terrain. When combined together, the picture looks extremely weird, giving people a sense of horror and oppression. Feng Shi couldn't help but think of the mummy guards in a classic movie, the Mummy series on Earth in his previous life. They are also so nimble in their movements, but not as weird as the ghosts behind them. They are completely different from the clumsy undead monsters in other works. Not to mention anything else, at least Feng Shi was relying on the powerful Tianke weapon in his hand at this time. Every time he attacked, he needed to see the right time and aim carefully, otherwise he might not be able to hit. Fortunately, Feng Shi's speed was not slow at this time, and he was familiar with the terrain. He was able to move around and launch attacks from time to time to interfere with the movements of the pursuers. Therefore, he was not caught up by them while he was chasing and escaping. Instead, he was hit one after another by him. Scatter the bodies of 5 undead. However, with so many undead chasing and blocking them, and the streets in the bunker city not being very spacious, Fengshi was eventually caught up. Seeing that running like this was not an option, he suddenly had an idea. He saw a tall building not far away and thought of a good idea. He immediately threw out the chain and wrapped it around the balcony of the tall building. As soon as he took off, he climbed to the top of the tall building with the help of the chain. With a shake of his hand, the meteor hammer automatically untied and was smashed by the undead chasing him below. Standing high and taking advantage of the terrain, he knocked down the undead one by one. There is no need to accumulate energy, nor does it need to be a one-hit kill, as long as the undead who have climbed up the wall can be smashed down again. The meteor hammer hitting the body is a damage, falling to the ground is also a damage, and the incidental real damage is another damage. Some of the undead were not killed by the first blow. They got up and continued to climb, but were smashed down 2 or 3 times. They were soon scattered and decomposed in the futile battle. In this effort, not only were the undead unable to get close to Fengshi, but more than 10 of them were killed. However, Fengshi did not relax his vigilance because he had discovered that their number was wrong. The next moment, without thinking, he stuck the meteor hammer on the railing, grabbed the chain and jumped downstairs. Almost at the same time, the remaining undead climbed up from the other side of the tall building. They originally wanted to sneak attack from behind, but when they saw Fengshi jumping from the building, they hurriedly swooped out and jumped after them. With their body weight and magic effect, it would be okay to jump from such a high place. However, what they didn't expect was that after Fengshi pulled the chain down to a certain level, he stepped on the wall and swung to the open space on the other side. After swinging to unlock the chain, Fengshi swung the meteor hammer and immediately struck back at the undead who were falling to the ground one after another. After several hammer blows, 3 more undead were smashed to pieces. At this time, only the last 6 of the plague skeletons were left standing. Fengshi no longer planned to run away, and took the initiative to meet them with the meteor hammer. Roar! As soon as the fearless war cry was activated, Fengshi was temporarily immune to the negative status caused by the undead poison gas, but the 6 undead were stunned by the roar. With just such a meal, they lost the opportunity. One of the undead was hit on the head by a flying meteor hammer, and his head was blown to pieces on the spot. Fengshi pulled the chain and the hammer flew back under the force, but he immediately launched a heroic collision. The invisible anger in his body suddenly burst out. The speed of his feet suddenly increased, and he charged at the undead with a violent force. Before hitting these undead, Fengshi had already stretched out his palm forward, grabbed the handle of the hammer that flew back, and hit the other undead in the chest with a single blow. Coupled with the momentum of charge and the power of skills, the power of this blow is just as strong as the thrown meteor hammer. One blow smashed the undead into pieces and flew upside down. The momentum of Fengshi's charge continued unabated, and his whole body hit the 2 undead behind, knocking them into an unstable state. He was unyielding, and the invisible anger in his body suddenly surged several times, and converged from his body to the round hammer in his hand, stirring up a roaring wind and hitting them hard on the head. Warrior's professional skills, Rage Burst plus Rage Attack. Bless the attack with violent anger, speed up the attack speed, increase the power of the attack, and cause the blow to cause shock damage in a small range. It can attack multiple targets at the same time, with a certain chance of causing a shocking effect. The most important thing is that this skill has been cultivated by Fengshi to the master level. The round hammers hit one after another, and the last 4 undead were instantly devastated by multiple blows. They shattered and fell apart without even a chance to fight back. On a tall building in the distance, Liue looked at the one-sided battle in the open space with her arms expressionlessly, and suddenly opened the corners of her mouth, revealing an inexplicable smile. This kid has the qualities of a warrior, but what is the reason that makes him secretly practice these unpopular weapons? It's interesting. This brat probably has some other secrets. Chapter 11, Reality. I tell you secretly, I am the son of destiny. Just when Fengshi, the first avatar from another world, personally started the special training in hell where he would not survive unless he was crazy, gritted his teeth and endured the crazy ravages of a group of strong men above level 50, and then continued to become stronger in the madness, as the main body. Feng Shi's life is actually not very leisurely. The reason is very simple. He is 18 years old and is a student who is about to take the entrance examination. Friends who often go to high school know that this stage is the most stressful period in your academic career. During this period, it seems that people all over the world are telling you to study hard and prepare for the entrance exam. Even a time traveler like Feng Shi cannot underestimate this. In this world, he is an orphan whose parents both died. He has been growing up in an orphanage since he was 6 years old. Before awakening his talent, he had the same specifications for life as others: study hard, get into a good university, and get a PhD in the future. A good job, and then work hard to make money to give back to the orphanage that raised me. The memory of the previous life on Earth is an advantage. He thought about waiting until the pressure of studying in college is not so great, and then try to see if he can learn some part-time skills first, such as learning to draw comics, learn to write novels, and learn music theory, which is convenient. In the future, he can transfer some excellent works from his previous life in his own way. But now, the most important thing in life has become to make good use of talents, practice as much as possible to become stronger before the so-called Abyss invasion, and cope with the disaster that is likely to come. In terms of strength, the alien clones are still working hard, and Feng Shi, as the main body, thinks that the most important thing at the moment is to first figure out where to get such things as extraordinary essence. After all, whether he is creating new clones from other worlds, resurrecting clones, summoning clones as thugs, obtaining treasures from other worlds, etc., he needs to use this resource. If you think about it, you will know that no matter how much you have, it will not be enough. Only by creating enough clones from other worlds, allowing thousands of clones to practice in all worlds at the same time, and then feeding back the results of their cultivation simultaneously, can the power of this innate ability be fully exploited at an unimaginable speed. Become stronger. For this reason, entrance examinations have become unimportant. But having said that, Feng Shi is still just a student, and he doesn't know where to go to obtain the extraordinary essence yet, so he still has to go to school. In the past few days, he was going to school and wandering around the nearby area in his spare time, looking for possible anomalies. He thought that the Sky Realm was also invaded by the Abyss, which also triggered the apocalypse. The people who were blessed by the apocalypse were the entire human race. Then there is no doubt that one thing is certain: there must be more than one apocalypse in the real world. The reason why the real world seems ordinary now, and there is no news about extraordinary people at all, may be that they have formed a niche circle, carefully hiding themselves, and following their own set of rules of action. Feng Shi has no idea what that circle is like, its attitude toward newcomers, and whether there are any risks. So he can only carefully hide himself and see if he can find one or two senior apocalypse first. Let's get some information from them. It's just that the actions in the past few days have been unorganized, like headless flies running around, so there is no gain. Feng Shi was also troubled by this, and even thought of simply going to the police station to confess her identity. National institutions should be regarded as a more trustworthy route of refuge. I think at the national level, I should know some information about the apocalypse. However, Feng Shi was very resistant to this method of leaving his own destiny to others. Even if he wanted to do it, it would be the last choice, so he quickly gave up the idea. Because he was pretending to be something, he had been absent-minded in class these past few days. Fortunately, this semester's studies were mainly about review, and no new knowledge was taught. Everyone was busy answering questions and struggling in the sea of questions, but not many classmates noticed his abnormality. Of course, just because most students don't care doesn't mean that they absolutely don't. Although Feng Shi is usually a bit withdrawn, she still has friends in school. For example, his desk mate Xiao Fan is a best friend who came from the same orphanage as him. The two can be said to be good friends who talk about everything. They wore the same pair of crotchless pants when they were young, they fought together back to back, and they were also lectured by the dean together. Even though he was later found and picked up by his biological parents, they were lucky enough to go to the same middle school and were assigned to the same class during high school, so their relationship was better than when they were children. After 3 years of getting along in high school, the two of them have a tacit understanding that may not even be matched by their relatives. Logically speaking, Fengshi's absent-mindedness these days must not escape his eyes. Under normal circumstances, he should have discovered it and asked about it long ago. That's right. Why didn't he ask? Fengshi suddenly woke up, stopped the butterfly knife that had been swinging wildly under the table, and suddenly turned her head to look at the seat next to her. But on a seat surrounded by books and exercise books, a young man with short hair, wheat-colored skin, handsome and sunny facial features, a seemingly honest face but a bit wretched in his eyebrows, was buttoning the trousers on his face. I had some acne, but I propped my head up and looked at the English teacher who was speaking on the podium, motionless, without blinking, so focused. Outsiders may think that he is staring at the English teacher's flesh-colored stockings and fantasizing about it, but Fengshi, who is familiar with him, knows that he does not like meat stockings, but only loves black stockings, and his interests are the same as his, ahem. He was not having S**x, but was in a daze. Fengshi frowned, stretched out her hand and poked his waist and kidneys with a little force, which made him suddenly start up. He quickly protected his waist, turned around and asked in a low voice with dissatisfaction. Ouch, what are you doing? Why the hell do you keep attacking my kidneys? It's all about fun, don't make fun of your brother's S**x. Fengshi asked casually, don't you like shredded meat? Xiao Fan carefully turned around and took a peek at the fashionable and beautiful teacher. Seeing that she didn't pay attention to him, he lowered his head and replied. You know it, but you're still talking nonsense. I was just thinking about something that is related to a major event in my future life. Fengshi wondered, oh? How rare. Have you decided whether to watch cavalry or infantry tonight? Who will read the code? Of course, TSK. Who told you this? It's business. Serious business? Okay. Then I'm not interested, so you don't need to tell me. Fengshi suddenly showed an expression of lack of interest and tried to play hard to get. Sure enough, Xiao Fan, who had always been talkative and showy, couldn't help it anymore and said anxiously in a low voice. F***ck. How could you not be interested? This thing is really bizarre and awesome. It's very important to me, my brother. You may not even believe it after hearing it. I've really been hiding it in my heart for several days. I still haven't figured out how to tell you. Hearing this, Fengshi showed an even more indifferent attitude and continued to play with the butterfly knife, casually comforting. Then you can think about it later, I'm not in a hurry. F***k. You're not in a hurry, I'd better tell you, but you must not tell anyone else. This is the biggest secret in my life, and you must keep it secret for me. Fengshi knew that he couldn't help it, because this guy was someone who couldn't hide things in his heart. He didn't say anything, waiting casually for him to tell his secret. However, he mysteriously leaned into Fengshi's ear and whispered solemnly. Let me tell you, I am actually the son of destiny. After Fengshi heard this, she turned to look at him in surprise. Black question mark face JPG. What are you? Destined child. Aren't you reading novels? Savior. Protagonist. Son of the plane. Do you understand? Fengshi saw that his attitude was serious and eager, and it didn't look like he was joking. She quickly thought of something based on his character and narrowed her eyes for a moment. Chapter 12, Reality, the King of Sky. So, you're saying that you just heard a revelation in your dream while sleeping at home on the weekend, and when you woke up, you found that you had awakened your superpower? During lunch break, in the corner of the school playground, Fengshi looked at the Son of Destiny, who was observing the surrounding environment with a sullen expression, and asked with complicated eyes. Xiao Fan heard the sound and quickly grabbed his arm, leaned forward, raised a finger to his mouth and whispered a warning. Shoo. Keep your voice down, don't let others hear you. On the runway not far away, two female students from the lower grades strolled by. Seeing the sneaky two men tugging in the corner, they couldn't help but steal a strange look. Fengshi's face darkened, she threw his hand away hard, pushed him further away, and said with disgust. Don't leave this barber shop alone. If you have something to say, don't get nervous. Have you read too many novels recently? He looked like he didn't believe it at all, but he actually believed it in his heart. He himself also woke up at night last weekend, and even the way of awakening was exactly the same. He just didn't expect that it would be such a coincidence that his only best friend would actually receive the apocalypse like him, and it was on the same day. This makes him feel a bit dreamy and unreal now. Xiao Fan didn't understand what he was thinking. Seeing that he didn't believe it, he immediately said anxiously, "How can you not believe it? Brother, when have I lied to you?" Feng Shi thought for a while and took stock carefully. "Last time you asked me to treat you to a big dinner, but it turned out to be a roadside barbecue stall and I paid the bill. Last time you said you made an appointment with the senior sister from the vocational college next door to go on a trip. On a date in the paradise, you asked me to be your wingman, and I ended up taking care of your sister for a day, and even went to play games online, and last time." Stop. Why are you still mentioning these things? Didn't I forget to bring money that day? And what's wrong with you about my sister? She is so innocent, cute, and she is so close to you, but you still dislike her? She has a red face. Do you dare to say that you haven't had a heartbeat when I called you Brother Feng with such a cute face? Isn't she much better than your Qing Mei who doesn't know where she is? Feng Shi's face was expressionless, her eyes were like looking at a scumbag. Your sister is only in her 3rd year of junior high school. Why didn't your parents break your legs when you were born? She is ignorant and neither are you. Xiao Fan laughed and laughed. Don't I trust you as a person? Besides, our relationship is so strong, wouldn't it be great if we could really become a family? Don't my parents also like you very much? It'll be okay. I treat you as a brother, but you want me to be your brother-in-law? Are you worthy of me? F***K. Ask the book friends who read this question and see what they say. Xiao Fan roared angrily, and then asked angrily. Anyway, I didn't lie to you this time. Just tell me how you can believe it. Feng Shi pretended to be joking and sarcastic. Didn't you say you awakened your superpower? Then why don't you use it and see? Xiao Fan was stunned for a moment and looked at the surroundings hesitantly. Here? Feng Shi glanced around and found that there was no one on the playground because the lunch break was almost over. He shrugged and stretched out his hand to signal, "Please start your performance." Xiao Fan gritted his teeth and nodded vigorously. "Okay. Watch it for me." As he spoke, he stretched out his palm, clenched it into a claw, and began to exert force. For a moment, the veins on his arms popped out, and his expression looked like he was constipated. Feng Shi frowned and watched patiently. After waiting for a long time, just when he was about to lose his patience, he finally saw a small black dot slowly appear on his palm. It was like a hole, only the size of a mung bean, but it caused the surrounding void to twist and form a strange vortex. Then he slapped his palm on the ground with some difficulty, and a large pit suddenly appeared silently on the ground. A small piece of land disappeared together with the soil, as if it was swallowed into an unknown time and space. Feng Shi watched the whole process and could clearly feel that the appearance of the black hole caused considerable energy fluctuations, which ordinary people could not feel. Seeing this magical scene, Feng Shi narrowed her eyes subconsciously, feeling surprised. This seems to be the ability of the space system. Then he reacted, immediately looked shocked, and exclaimed, F***K. Are you serious? Xiao Fan finally saw his expectant expression on his good friend's body, and immediately felt that he had succeeded. His mood was more comfortable than drinking a big sip of iced Coke, and he couldn't help but start giggling. Ha ha ha. How about it? Do you believe me now? Let me tell you, that voice also said that there will be some abyss invasion in the future, telling me to seize the time to become stronger. This is to choose me as the savior, asking me to save the world and eventually become the king of the world. Little crazy boy, from now on you will follow me and assist me. When I become the king of the world, you will be my general manager. One person can be less than 10,000 people, just like Zhao Gao. Think about it, right? Feeling very excited? What Feng Shi can't stand the most is his appearance of a villain who has succeeded. No matter how many times he sees it, his fists will become hard. So he responded mercilessly. Zhao Gao poisoned Qin Shi Huang to death. Are you sure you want me to do the same as him? Harm. Isn't this an example? With our relationship, can you still harm me? Huh. It's not like I haven't beaten you before. If you continue to show off to me, I promise you won't be polite. Faced with Feng Shi's angry threat, Xiao Fan looked relaxed. Don't make trouble, I am a superpower now. You have to be more self-aware. I'm afraid I will hurt you accidentally. Feng Shi laughed, decided not to give him a chance to show off, and went straight to the point and asked. Stop talking nonsense and tell me what your ability is. You've been talking nonsense for a long time. Xiao Fan said with a proud smile, Hey. I'll scare you when I say it. My superpower is called the King of Space. I can control the surrounding space at will and create any space ability I can think of. Just now I held the palm of my hand. The space is compressed into a small point and then released, producing powerful destructive power. In the future, operations such as space teleportation, space cutting, and creating black holes should be out of the question. Hearing this, Feng Shi lowered his head and glanced at the small pit under his feet, and raised his eyebrows. Powerful? Xiao Fan suddenly argued dissatisfiedly. I have just awakened now, and I definitely need time to grow. I will become more proficient the more I use it in the future, and my superpower will definitely become stronger the more I use it. It needs to be developed later. And as long as I can get a kind of extraordinary source of energy, if I use something, I can speed up the upgrade. I believe it won't be long before I can become the god of space and play with time and space at will. All you need to know now is that my superpower is very strong. You shouldn't question anything else. It was rare that Feng Shi didn't object to him on this point. After all, he had read so many novels, and of course he understood that the Space Department was indeed the top superpower sequence, and it was the strongest ability level in any novel. This kid does have the capital to be proud of himself. Chapter 13, Reality, Xiao Fan's Decision. Have you told anyone about this? Including your family? On the way back to the classroom, Feng Shi asked seriously. Xiao Fan shook his head repeatedly and promised, You are the first, because I think you are the most likely person among all my trustworthy people to accept this setting quickly. Feng Shi gave him a look that looked smart to you, and then said. That's good. This matter is very relevant. Don't mention it to anyone for the time being. Pay attention at school and don't talk about it. We will discuss what to do next after school in the evening. I knew you were a fool. Okay, let's talk about it tonight. I'm actually very confused right now. Please help me make a good reference. The whole afternoon was spent in slight restlessness. Feng Shi was full of thoughts and thought about a lot of things all afternoon, but Xiao Fan, who finally shared the secret in his heart, felt much better and was no longer in a daze, but his expression gradually started to drift. Looking at the eyes of the students and teachers around him, they gradually became playful, with a bit of aloof arrogance, and a Dragon King smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. When the class monitor he once had a crush on came to collect homework from him, he would sneer and say, Woman, how dare you speak to me in this tone? Well, you succeeded in arousing my interest. This made the squad leader push up his glasses and cursed Shenjin. Feng Shi didn't remind him either, because he was already sure of getting this guy to restrain himself. After school, neither of them went to study at night. They walked out of the school gate and took a remote path home, chatting while walking. When no one was around, Feng Shi's first words confused Xiao Fan. I know you feel that you are unique and destined now, but I advise you to keep a low profile. If the doomsday you mentioned is true, then you don't really think that the so-called heaven will take the responsibility of saving the world. Leave it to someone. Xiao Fan stayed for a moment, and then thought about it carefully, and found that the voice that night did not say that he was the only one to receive the apocalypse. So he touched his chin and frowned and asked, You mean, maybe I'm not the only one in this world who is the apocalypse? I think this is the most likely possibility. This is why I asked you not to reveal your identity yet. The specific situation is still unclear. What if there is a superpower who awakens earlier than you and has malicious intentions? I found you, do you think you can handle it with your current abilities? Feng Shi followed the temptation and succeeded in making Xiao Fan start to get scared. Don't talk so darkly. Isn't the purpose of apocalypse to create a savior? Then even if there are other apocalypse, shouldn't it be to save the world? If they are all invaded by some abyss, can there still be people who can kill each other? Feng-shi looked at him calmly, as if looking at a silly spore. You don't believe what you are saying, so don't make me laugh by saying it. Besides, you have never thought about whether other apocalypse also need the so-called extraordinary source of energy to accelerate their growth. If so... Xiao Fan's expression changed and he said in shock, "What do you want to say? When we don't know anything, what else can the only extraordinary existence we can think of be?" Xiao Fan is not an idiot. He has already understood what Chu Yen meant. At this time, his stern face could no longer smile. It's other apocalypse. The atmosphere was silent for a long time before Xiao Fan regained his composure and asked in a deep voice. Then what do you think I should do now? Feng-shi looked at him deeply and said, "Do what we were supposed to do, and don't do anything else except wait." Wait? Yes, wait for the next extraordinary thing to appear, and then decide what to do based on the actual situation. This is Feng-shi's truest thought, and he has done the same in the past few days. However, Xiao Fan shook his head firmly and vetoed, "No. I don't agree." Feng-shi was stunned for a moment, a little surprised. This kid rarely refutes him on serious matters and usually relies on his opinions, but today he actually denied himself on such an important matter. But he was not angry, he just asked, "What do you think? We don't know when the so-called abyss invasion will come. What if there is not much time left for me and I have been passively waiting and doing nothing? What if I am not strong enough to protect the people I cherish when disaster strikes? Then I will definitely regret it." Xiao Fan said slowly with an unprecedented seriousness. "Actually, in the past few days after my awakening, I have carefully considered the next step. After all, saving the world is not an easy task no matter how you look at it. After thinking about it, I found that there is one thing that I absolutely cannot avoid, and that is the country. If the end is really coming, the biggest help I can think of is the country. And if the malicious apocalypse you mentioned does exist, then the only force I can trust that will not harm me is my motherland." When Feng-shi heard this, he realized something. Everyone's ideas and positions are different, so there are biases in their views on things. He is a time traveler who has lived through 2 lifetimes. After having a channel to continue to become stronger, there is nothing wrong with choosing to be cautious. But Xiao Fan still doesn't know how to become stronger. Under the threat of the invasion of the unknown abyss, it is normal for him to be more anxious to become stronger. It was right for him to trust the country so much, because he was trafficked when he was very young and was rescued from the traffickers by the police. After living in an orphanage for several years, it was the country that helped him find his biological parents. His life has been saved by the country, and of course he has reason to trust the motherland unconditionally. So after Feng-shi listened, he thought for a moment and asked again. "Since you are so determined, I support your decision. If you think about it carefully, this is indeed the safest plan among all active options. So when do you want to take action?" Xiao Fan smiled without hesitation. "It's better to choose a different day than to hit it. I'll go now." Feng-shi nodded and said without hesitation, "Okay, then I'll go with you." In fact, he was still considering whether to tell Xiao Fan that he was also an apocalypse, but now he decided to postpone this plan. His idea was that if something unexpected happened to him in his attempt to reveal his identity, at least he could still find a way to save him. In this case, at least before this operation, it would be better for him to hide in the dark for the time being. If he also exposes his identity and goes to contact the authorities together, and something goes wrong, it will be a double kill for nothing. He never minds considering the worst-case scenario, because he knows that nothing in this world is absolutely trustworthy. The country he is in is very similar to the motherland of the previous life on Earth, and it is generally reliable. But, then again, a country is a country and individuals are individuals. If anyone who is an official of the state would never have any problems, then there wouldn't be so many corrupt officials being arrested every year. Of course, there is no need to tell Xiao Fan about this consideration for the time being, as it will affect his simple feelings for the motherland. We can talk about the future later. If there is darkness now, he will block it for him first. Chapter 14, Reality, Uncle Policeman, I'm not kidding. He did what he said, and in the evening of the same day, Feng Shi accompanied Xiao Fan to the Hangzhou Public Security Bureau, the highest level in Hangzhou City. But he didn't go in with him. The reason for coming to the Hangzhou General Bureau was that the information about the apocalypse might be very secret, and the police officers at the General Branch Police Station might not be able to know it, so it was safer to come to the General Bureau. Naturally, he chose not to go in with him just in case. Feng Shi would hide outside and observe secretly, while Xiao Fan would go in and reveal his identity. During this process, the two people's mobile phones will always be in communication mode. The reason for not using professional monitoring equipment is because we don't have it on hand and can't use it, which is more likely to cause unnecessary misunderstandings and suspicions. Feng Shi didn't need to teach him what to do all the time, she just needed to know if anything happened to him in the police station. Phew. I'm in. Madman, wait for me outside. After some explanation, Xiao Fan took a deep breath, turned around and walked into the Public Security Bureau. Feng Shi turned around and walked into a nearby restaurant and ordered a bowl of ramen. Waiting for others will not affect his dinner. Little brother, what can you do? The Longguo Public Security Bureau is staffed 24 hours a day, so although it is almost night, there are still some police officers in the station. Seeing Xiao Fan walking in with a serious face in his school uniform, a young police officer immediately asked with a rather eager attitude. Xiao Fan looked around and found that there were only two young police officers at the front desk and no one else, so he stepped forward and said to them, "Uncle Policeman, I have something very serious to report to you." "Uncle? Do we both look old?" The two young police officers complained in their hearts, but their expressions became serious. Xiao Fan could see that the two looked at each other and frowned slightly. What can a student do when he comes to the police station? Could it be that he encountered some kind of school bullying incident? Now that we are approaching the high school entrance examination, it is the most sensitive time for such incidents. It is not a trivial matter. A young police officer motioned for him to sit down with a serious expression. "Classmate, please sit down first and talk to us slowly." Another young police officer took out a pen and paper and asked neatly, "Classmate, what is your name? Which school are you from? What trouble did you encounter? Were you bullied in school? Don't be afraid, tell us, we will help you." When Xiao Fan heard this, he waved his hands and said, "No. You misunderstood, no one bullied me." "What's that?" Seeing the doubtful looks of the two police officers, Xiao Fan took a deep breath and answered seriously. "Two policemen, what I'm about to say may sound bizarre, don't be afraid." When the two police officers heard this, they looked at each other, smiled and said comfortingly, "We are the police, we are not afraid, just say whatever you want." Xiao Fan then said, "My name is Xiao Fan. I am a senior in high school this year and studying at number 1 high school in Hangzhou. But this is not the point. The point is that I am now a superpower." The two of them were obviously stunned, and then they confirmed with confused expressions, "Who do you think you are?" Seeing that they didn't seem to believe it, Xiao Fan also moved a little excitedly, as if he wanted to improve his persuasiveness. "I said I am a person with superpowers. Have you seen the movie or novel? They are human beings who can use supernatural powers." The two police officers frowned again, and his expression began to look strange. "Power person?" The police officer holding the pen and paper suddenly started to paint and quickly drew a simple figure, wearing underwear, a tights and a cape, and a big S letter on the chest. Xiao Fan took one look and shook his head immediately. "That's not it. He is an alien, and his situation is different from mine." The police officer changed the character again and quickly drew a few more words. When he lifted it up, he saw a strong man in black cloak wearing a bat mask. Xiao Fan shook his head again. "That's even more wrong. Strictly speaking, he is just a rich ordinary person. He is not a person with superpowers." The police officer frowned and was about to take another piece of paper, but Xiao Fan held him down and stopped him. "Stop drawing. My situation is different. I suddenly heard a revelation when I was sleeping a few days ago, and then I woke up and found that I had superpowers. The voice also said that something called the Abyss is invading our world, and superpowers like us appeared to fight them. This story sounded even more outrageous. The two police officers looked at each other as if they were discussing what serious illness this student had. Xiao Fan saw their disbelief. Maybe they had already regarded him as a lunatic. In his eagerness, he shouted directly, "If you don't believe it, I can prove it to you." With that said, he stood up again, took a step back and started to activate his abilities. The two police officers immediately stood up and tried to comfort them. "Classmate, please calm down. We don't believe you. Don't be anxious. Sit down first, if you have anything to say." The next moment, the two people's expressions were stunned, because they saw a black dot appear between Xiao Fan's palms, causing the surrounding space to turn into a twisted whirlpool. F***K. Are you serious? Do you really have superpowers? The two people exclaimed, then realized what they were doing and quickly called to report. "Director. Come and take a look, there is a superpower in the bureau." "I'm not kidding, it's true." Okay. I understand." After a phone call, the two police officers calmed down a bit and said to Xiao Fan, "Classmate, we believe in you, you should quickly collect your magical powers." Xiao Fan struggled to control his abilities, veins popped up on his forehead, but he felt a little embarrassed when he spoke. I haven't learned how to hold back yet. Is there anything you can let me take a picture of?" After a while, there was a strange roar in the police station. The two police officers glanced at a large piece of wall that had been dug out not far away, their eyelids twitched twice, then turned to Xiao Fan, who sat down again and said, "Classmate, the higher-ups already know about you. Please wait here for a while. Someone should be looking for you soon. Before that, we will make a record first. You will tell us in detail how you got your superpowers, as well as your family situation and parents' information. We will also make a record." Xiao Fan nodded, "No problem." Maybe the appearance of a person with superpowers really attracted people's attention. When the transcript was just finished, two figures had already walked in from the door. The two young police officers immediately stood up and respectfully shouted to one of the middle-aged police officers with a majestic face, "Director, you are here." The person who came in with the director was a tall, long-legged middle-aged man. His posture was as straight as a gun, but his eyes were indifferent, his beard was not cleanly shaved, and there was a cigarette hanging from his mouth. He was casually wearing a black uniform, unbuttoned. Xiao Fan had never seen him before, and he didn't know which department he belonged to. As soon as he came, his eyes fell on Xiao Fan, he looked up and down, and then greeted him. "You are really a student, your name is Xiao Fan, right? Come with me, I will take you to the place where you should go to register." Xiao Fan frowned and looked at him, faintly feeling the same kind of aura on him, so he asked, "Registration? Uncle, who are you?" The other party smiled slightly, exhaled a puff of smoke and said leisurely, "Dragon Kingdom Apocalypse Management Bureau, aren't we the ones you want to find? Your initiative to report your identity is worthy of recognition, but you have come to the wrong place. It's getting late. Let's leave early. I still have to teach you a lot of things. Time is limited. I'll be late sending you home later, and it won't be easy to explain to your parents." Chapter 15, Reality, Official Apocalypse. Night gradually falls, and the lanterns of Hangzhou begin to light up. A seemingly ordinary domestic car was driving on the ring road, all the way to the edge of the city. The car window was open and the car was not going very fast. A middle-aged man in black uniform was driving with one hand and holding a cigarette outside the window with the other hand, taking a puff from time to time. That look was not as eager as he said. Xiao Fan sat in the passenger seat and asked curiously, "So, uncle, our country does have an extraordinary organization composed of the apocalypse. Just like in the novel, it hides in the dark, protects the country, protects the people, and maintains world peace, right? If you put it this way, are there really many apocalypses in this world?" The lazy man turned to look at him and asked, "Sure enough? Has anyone told you this before?" Xiao Fan's heart tightened, and Feng Shi's explanation sounded, and he quickly pretended to be calm and said, "No, I guessed it myself. Although the revelation in the dream did not explain it, I think that saving the world cannot be left to me alone." "Do it alone?" The man did not get too suspicious, but praised with a hint of relief. "That's right. He is a wise man, and he has not been dazzled by the sudden power. He is much better than those stupid fools who think they are the sons of destiny after awakening." As he spoke, he complained. "A few months ago, I took over the guidance of a freshman. After he woke up, he couldn't wait to tell his relatives and friends that he was the son of the plane, the savior of destiny, etc., which caused us to spend a lot of time and effort to deal with it. We found at that time, he was confessing his love to the girl he liked, and he said shamelessly that he would make her a heroine, and promise her immortality and so on. It was so stupid that I still find it funny when I think about it, haha." "Huh. Isn't this funny? Why don't you laugh?" "Guess why I don't laugh?" Xiao Fan looked at him expressionlessly, with a forced arc at the corner of his mouth. "I'm sorry, I am a person who has a high sense of humor." The man felt a little embarrassed by his strange eyes and could only sneer. "Oh. It turns out you are aloof, but you can't really tell on the surface." As he said that, he changed the subject and explained, "Actually, there are not as many apocalypses as you think. The country attaches great importance to any apocalypse, because their potential is generally much higher than that of other extraordinary beings." When Xiao Fan heard this, he was a little surprised. "Ah. Are you saying that besides the apocalypse, there are other types of extraordinary beings in this world?" The man nodded. "Yes, in fact, the apocalypse appeared very early. With their appearance, extraordinary power began to gradually become active around the world. All countries are studying extraordinary things, and some big countries have already achieved considerable results. It can help ordinary people master extraordinary abilities to a certain extent, but the upper limit of such extraordinary abilities is relatively low, and many of them are unstable and have various hidden dangers. Most of the acquired extraordinary beings who are in a stable state are basically derived from the power of the apocalypse. The awakening ability of some apocalypse has special effects that allow ordinary people to obtain extraordinary abilities. The rest are due to some accidental exposure to extraordinary things, and they became extraordinary by chance. Most of these cases are difficult to copy and are not universal. After years of development, the group of extraordinary beings has formed a certain scale, but there have never been many real apocalypse people. In the past 2 years, the number of people who have been awakened by the apocalypse has gradually increased." After Xiao Fan listened carefully, he was greatly shocked. An extraordinary world hidden in the dark had initially taken shape in his mind. He touched the mobile phone in his belt and asked again. "I understand, the apocalypse is still very rare, and it is more worthy of the country to cultivate, right? By the way, uncle, are you an apocalypse?" "I'm not." "Oh, then do you know what the extraordinary source of matter is?" Except for newcomers, all extraordinary people know that, as the name suggests, it is the source material of extraordinary abilities. Every extraordinary thing contains a certain amount of extraordinary source matter. Generally, it can only be plundered through destruction. The apocalypse can absorb the source matter, accelerate and become stronger. Although other extraordinary beings cannot directly absorb it, they can also be used to assist their cultivation. As he said this, he thought of something else and immediately comforted him. "Don't worry, our country strictly prohibits extraordinary people from killing each other and plundering the essence. We will also provide you with protection that matches your potential rating. After all, you are an apocalypse and enjoy special treatment that other extraordinary people do not have." Xiao Fan breathed a sigh of relief and asked excitedly. "That's good. Listen to what you mean, the apocalypse still has potential ratings? How is it divided specifically? My talent is in the space system, so it should be the highest rating, right?" Hearing this, the middle-aged man threw away the cigarette butt in his hand, looked at the young man beside him speechlessly, and asked inexplicably. "Based on what I just said, it should be easy for you to think of what type of apocalypse ability user the highest rating is, right?" He suddenly felt a little weird. Why did this kid's IQ fluctuate so high and low? Xiao Fan only reacted after being reminded by him, and suddenly said, that's right. The apocalypse who can create more acquired extraordinary beings must be the most valued by the country. Sorry, I was too excited and stupid. It's okay, young people can understand. The man in the dark night continued to drive and said casually and reliably. The apocalypse who can help ordinary people awaken without side effects are the rarest of existences. We call them Emperor talents. It sounds a bit outlandish, but their abilities really fit this name because of their extraordinary power. It's so tempting that no one can refuse, so they can easily recruit a group of capable subordinates and build a team of extraordinary beings, comparable to the Emperor among extraordinary beings. My ability comes from an imperial apocalypse. Fortunately, he belongs to the country and does not require my loyalty to him. And acquired extraordinary beings like me are the majority of the country's extraordinary organizations. Speaking of this, his tone also contained a hint of emotion. You can now somewhat imagine the treatment and status of the Emperor-type apocalypse, right? Xiao Fan nodded, his eyes a little yearning. The Emperor among extraordinary beings sounds really majestic. It feels like my space ability was suddenly outmatched. Just as he was sighing secretly, the man in black reminded, "We are here." Xiao Fan looked up and saw that the vehicle had arrived at a somewhat deserted suburban villa area. It is surrounded by mountains and rivers, far away from high-rise buildings. The scenery is very good, but there are not many people in sight. The door opened automatically, the vehicle drove in, and the man in black said, "This is the core area where the extraordinary people under the entire official Hangzhou city live, work, gather, and handle extraordinary events. The headquarters of our Apocalypse administration is also here." Xiao Fan nodded and looked at it curiously. The scenery is very nice. If you like, you can apply for a villa as your dormitory. The Apocalypse has this treatment. So good? It's a pity that it's a bit far away from the school. I'll talk about it later when I have a chance. The villa area was very large, but while the two were chatting, they soon arrived in front of a large office building. After the car parked, the man in the dark night took Xiao Fan in, but as soon as he entered, Xiao Fan suddenly said, "Sorry, I want to go to the toilet first." The man in black nodded, told him the location of the bathroom on the first floor, and said he would wait for him. After Xiao Fan walked into the bathroom, he immediately sent the detailed address to Feng Shi. After coming out, while observing the environment in the office building, he asked again. "It's really nice here, but there aren't many people around. I just saw a lot of mountains in the back. Isn't the location a little too remote? If there is any sudden extraordinary incident in the city, will we be able to rescue it in time?" The man in the night smiled. "Don't underestimate the ability of extraordinary people to move, and there is a reason why we chose a more remote place. Extraordinary creatures will attract each other, but relatively speaking, extraordinary monsters with keener perceptions will be more likely to sense the existence of extraordinary people first. Therefore, compared to ordinary people, extraordinary people will be attacked by extraordinary monsters first, and among them, extraordinary people will be attacked by extraordinary monsters first. The apocalypse has the highest priority. We chose this place naturally to allow more extraordinary people to gather here, so that we can attract as many potential monsters to this area as possible to deal with them. The remote environment is also more suitable for us to fight. It is also for this reason that extraordinary creatures that are difficult to find in urban areas can often be encountered in this area. Especially in the past 2 years, more and more extraordinary creatures have appeared, which has made battles more frequent. However, they are also the main extraordinary source for us to improve our strength and accumulate resources." As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Fan's expression suddenly changed. "What did you say? Extraordinary creatures often appear here?" The man in black thought he was scared, so he smiled and reassured. "Don't worry, you are a newcomer, we will protect you. As long as you don't wander around alone outside the villa area, you basically don't have to worry about encountering danger. Generally speaking, they can't even enter the villa area before they are killed by the extraordinary people here. Rushed to eliminate it." "Yes, really?" Xiao Fan twitched the corner of his mouth and responded with a forced smile, but he began to worry in his heart. He is not worried about himself, because he knows that Feng Shi must be on the way now, just in case. Chapter 16, Reality. the first extraordinary source of essence. Little brother, do you live in Longshan district? It's quite remote there, and I rarely catch passengers going there. In the taxi, Feng Shi was wearing a black mask, holding a mobile phone in her hand, and frowning slightly. When he heard the taxi driver's conversation, he raised his head and said casually, "My friend lives there and invites us to have a dinner tonight." "Oh, that's it. Then your friend's family is very rich, right? The villas there are very expensive, and they have been sold out long ago. Rich people can't even buy them." The driver nodded, and then said somewhat mysteriously, "But I heard that it seems to be haunted there." "I just heard that, don't take it to heart." Feng Shi glanced at him and thought that these taxi drivers were indeed the most well-informed people in the city and had heard some rumors. Of course, the theory of being haunted is just people's groundless conjecture. Someone should have heard some fighting sounds or some strange scenes of extraordinary beings dealing with extraordinary creatures near Longshan district. When they were passed around, it became haunted. After hearing this, he just said casually, "It's okay, we young people are full of blood and are not afraid of ghosts." The master was relieved when he saw that he was not angry, and said jokingly, "I know you don't believe this, but for us old guys who have been working hard outside all year round, it's better to believe in these mysterious things to avoid triggering any taboos inadvertently and causing bad luck." Feng Shi didn't speak anymore. He continued to monitor the voice on the phone. The reception was not very good in the first place, so he naturally had to focus more to avoid missing any important information. Naturally, he could deal with these veteran drivers flawlessly. The driver seemed to have noticed that something was wrong with Feng Shi, and he was very sensible and didn't say anything more. When the taxi drove near Longshan district, it happened to come to a relatively dark section of the road, and Feng Shi suddenly said, "Master, stop. It's enough to send you here. I'll walk the rest of the way by myself." "Here?" The driver was a little surprised, but he still stopped the car on the side of the road. He looked at his surroundings with confusion. He was still on the road, but there was no car, and there were no pedestrians on the roadside. Under the dim street lights, the shadows of the buildings and the shadows of the trees on the roadside were piled on top of each other. It makes this street look a bit eerie at night. For some reason, he shuddered subconsciously and felt a little uncomfortable. He couldn't help but confirm, "Are you sure you want to get off here?" "Well, we're almost there." Feng Shi scanned the QR code to pay, then opened the door and got out of the car neatly. Before closing the door, he glanced at him lightly and gave him a casual warning. "Master, go back quickly to avoid violating the taboo and causing bad luck." He seemed to have something on his mind, which shocked the middle-aged taxi driver. Then from the corner of his eye, he seemed to see something moving in the shadows ahead. His hair suddenly stood up, and regardless of whether it was an illusion or not, he immediately turned around and stepped on the accelerator, then disappeared at the end of the road. Feng Shi calmly looked at the shadow in front of him, took out a handful of game coins from his trouser pocket, and held it silently in his hand. The next moment, under his gaze, a black humanoid monster with long arms and legs walked out of the shadows. But I saw that it was covered in black, and its skin was as rough as poured asphalt. The oval face had only simple outlines of facial features, the eyes were just two holes, and the mouth seemed to be torn open alive, covered with irregular saw teeth. It carried its body slightly, and its long and thin arms ended in 5 sharp claws. A casual sweep across the cement floor left a few black scratches, and there was a faint, strange black air emitting from them. Feng Shi looked at this ugly and simple monster and sighed slightly in her heart. It seems that the man did not lie to Xiao Fan. Extraordinary creatures do attract each other. The apocalypse is especially favored by these monsters. Then he made another observation and determined some information. This appearance should not be an infected monster that was mutated by the abyss's demonic energy, but a real abyss monster. Based on the basic knowledge he learned from the Sky Realm, he could identify the type of monster. Abyss monsters are orthodox monsters from the abyss plane and are invasive species, while infected monsters are monsters that are mutated by certain animals and plants that are infected by the penetrating abyss breath. They are essentially mutated native creatures. In comparison, abyss monsters are more dangerous than infected monsters, but it is not absolute. In the early days of the apocalypse, most monsters were infected monsters, but it is not surprising to see abyss monsters in the real world, because as the breath of the abyss continues to penetrate, there will also be some low-level, smaller or without substantial bodies. The monsters entered the invaded civilized world in advance. This situation has also been recorded in the historical data of the Sky Realm, so Feng Shi can know about it. But he didn't know what the specific abilities of the monster in front of him were. Just in case, he didn't plan to start a close combat with his hands and face, but suddenly threw the coins in his hands out at the same time using a basic concealed weapon technique, and covered the opponent. This trick can probably be called scattering money all over the sky. To put it simply, it's called scattering. Forget it, I won't scold myself. Almost at the moment Feng Shi made a move, the slender monster also moved at the same time, rushing towards him with a weird and fast-running posture, and his body was immediately hit by several scattered coins. However, the moment it was hit, the area where the body was attacked automatically turned into black smoke, and the coin passed through its body, seemingly causing no harm. Fortunately, the monster's movements paused for a moment under the blow, and its steps staggered a bit. The place where the coin passed through made a sizzling sound, and some black mist floated out. The monster also opened its ferocious mouth and let out a silent wail of pain. It seemed that it was still hurt, and the damage was not low. For no other reason than true harm to the eternal God. However, Feng Shi, who succeeded in the attack, turned around and ran away. At the same time, he continued to take out coins and fired the concealed weapon remotely, causing black mist to float away from its body, making it more and more painful. Facing enemies with unknown capabilities, long-range attacks are the best way to test them. This fighting method is not like a warrior at all, but it is the safest choice at the moment. Weapon Master times. Hidden Weapon Master. Roar. The slender monster seemed to be a little anxious. He suddenly activated his ability and his whole body turned into a mist-shrouded phantom. His speed suddenly increased and he chased Feng Shi. This speed was obviously much faster than Feng Shi's escape speed. Just when he was about to be caught up, Feng Shi suddenly roared, and anger rose throughout his body. The monster's movements were intimidated by the effect of the fearless war cry for a moment, but Feng Shi had already taken out a large iron pot from the storage space, turned around like a shield, and patted it on the head. Invisible anger enveloped the iron pot, causing a muffled sound of duang. Rage burst plus rage attack plus pot shield attack equals the fury of the red wolf. The force of this blow was quite terrifying. The iron pot was shattered on the spot, and the monster was violently smashed out of the black mist phantom form, returning to its original shape and retreating continuously. Feng Shi, however, was unyielding. His body flew forward and flew into the monster's arms as fast as possible. Each of his hands threw out a butterfly knife, slicing, slashing, stabbing and stabbing at an extremely high frequency. Crazy attack, pulling out countless fragments of golden sword light. Instead of pursuing every kill, we only pursue a higher frequency of attacks, in order to naturally trigger as much additional real damage as possible. This sudden series of attacks can be called a textbook defensive counterattack. The monster didn't even have time to react before being overwhelmed by the violent close-quarter cuts. It drank in the real damage triggered by the madness, and its body spread into black mist and dissipated. Feng Shi waved two butterfly knives and sheathed them handsomely. She immediately felt a mysterious power enter her body, and was directly absorbed by the apocalyptic power in the sea of consciousness. Feng Shi suddenly laughed, "Get the first extraordinary source of essence." Chapter 17, Reality, Trustworthy Official. After a brief moment of joy, Feng Shi quickly calmed down. Because he briefly checked it and found that the extraordinary source of essence he obtained by killing this abyss monster was actually not much, and it was not enough for him to create the next alien clone. Even the operations of resurrecting the clone and summoning the clone to the real world as a thug are not possible. In other words, this extraordinary source of essence can't do anything. Feng Shi can only save it for the time being. But everything is difficult at the beginning. Now that he has learned so much information about extraordinary beings, and also knows that Hangzhou has such a geomantic treasure land that can attract extraordinary creatures to gather, the next thing to do is much simpler. If you wander around here more in the future, you should be able to encounter more prey, and sooner or later you will be able to accumulate enough energy. As for risks, Feng Shi is not very worried, because according to the historical comparison of the Sky Realm, the Abyss invasion of this world should not have entered the stage of full invasion. There are not many extraordinary creatures, and their strength is basically not too scary. The only thing he needs to pay attention to is to be careful when poaching, and not to be caught by the official extraordinary people living in Longshan district, at least not before his identity is exposed. This is easy to handle. Just don't stay too close to the Longshan villa area next time. He can go hunting in the mountains and forests near Longshan district and intercept the monsters that are attracted to him in advance. After all, he is an apocalypse who can attract the hatred of monsters more than ordinary extraordinary beings. He should be able to attract some prey, right? These thoughts were just a fleeting thought. Feng Shi did not stay where he was. He quickly collected the coins and iron pot fragments left on the battlefield, and then went straight to the Longshan villa area on the mountainside. Encountering the Abyss monster was just an episode. The purpose of tonight was always to ensure Xiao Fan's safety. Even if you want to hunt, you have to make sure that there is no problem with the so-called Apocalypse Management Bureau. About 2 minutes after he left, 2 figures rushed over from the other side of the road. They were extremely fast, running around and jumping, and quickly arrived at the place where Feng Shi was attacked. They were wearing black uniforms from the Apocalypse Administration, with masks on their faces, making it difficult to see their facial features. After arriving at the battlefield, they checked the small instruments in their hands for a moment, and then said with some confusion, "If we can detect traces of the Abyss's breath, we should be right here, but we seem to be a step too late." This time the monster appeared so far away, and there is someone who can move faster than us. Could it be that someone came back at this time, and he happened to meet him? What kind of bullshit luck is this? I don't know. I just know that our trip was in vain this time. The 2 shook their heads and sighed, and were about to turn around and leave when one of them seemed to have stepped on something, making a metallic friction sound. He lowered his head to pick it up and took a look, only to find that it was a common game coin in an arcade city. He was just about to throw it away, but suddenly noticed something and narrowed his eyes slightly. There seems to be a remnant of the Abyss on this coin. It's quite strong. It feels like. Another person also noticed it and said, "It seems like it was used as a throwing object and hit the monster's body, causing some damage." After coming to this conclusion, they suddenly became interested. Do we in Hangzhou have extraordinary people who use coins as hidden weapons? And are they also such low-quality game coins? I haven't heard of it. If you are interested, go back and ask about it. There should be fingerprints on it, right? What do you want to do? Just ask around. If you use formal authority to investigate, you may arouse the hostility of the other party. I know, but have you ever thought about it? If this guy is not our official transcendent in Hangzhou, but comes here to hunt monsters, then we can't ignore him. The Longshan Villa area and its surrounding areas are the common territory of Hangzhou's official extraordinary beings. The monsters that appear here are naturally the legal prey of the official extraordinary beings. Extraordinary people from other forces are not allowed to hunt monsters here. This point must be observed even when the official transcendent from the next city comes to avoid conflicts. But there have been more than one cases where unofficial supernatural beings sneaked in to poach monsters before. Every time they found out, everyone would give the other party a lesson, and even the officials couldn't intervene. Because there is nothing wrong with this approach, so many extraordinary beings gather here, use their bodies to form a cluster effect, and seduce the monsters to take the initiative to die. This is a disguised protection of the entire city, but they do bear the risk. Since you have taken the risk, you should naturally enjoy the benefits and privileges you deserve. Besides, they themselves can't get enough of the monsters they attract, so why should you, an outsider, pick the peaches? After listening to this, my companion was convinced and agreed. What you said makes sense. Let's go back and hand it over to the superiors for checking. Extraordinary people have all entered their fingerprints when registering. It is enough to confirm whether they are one of our own, but poachers may not commit such low-level things. Mistakes can also leave evidence such as fingerprints. If there are no fingerprints left, wouldn't we have more reason to suspect that the other party is a poacher who has been prepared for it? Then we can ask the extraordinary people in each department to know whether one of our own people did it. Well, that's right. Let's go now. After finding a place to hide outside the Longshan Villa area and waiting for another 2 hours, Fengxi finally saw Xiao Fan being driven out by the man in black again. During this period, he did not encounter a second monster. Fengxi, who was monitoring the whole process, naturally obtained some basic information about the circle of extraordinary people, such as the registration process, the terms of confidentiality for ordinary people, and the choice of the newcomers' whereabouts. It turns out that newcomers discovered by the official don't only have the option of joining the official. They can also choose not to join the official organization after officially registering their identity information, and go home to be free and independent individuals hidden in the market. If the official encounters some extraordinary event that is not easy to handle, it is possible to call people together to act together, but most of the time there are not many such opportunities. Sometimes the official will release bounty tasks to the outside world, and extraordinary individuals can also accept the tasks and obtain various extraordinary resources as rewards. However, Sanren are definitely not as well paid as official transcendents, and the opportunities and channels for the two to obtain extraordinary resources are far apart. Xiao Fan chose to join the official team on the spot without even raising any conditions. The man in black was quite satisfied with his appearance of complete trust in the country, and his attitude became a bit more cordial. Fengxi respects his choice. He feels that sometimes it is not a bad thing for people to be simple at all, although reality tells us that most of the time, honest people suffer. After confirming that Xiao Fan was not eaten as prey, Fengxi finally breathed a sigh of relief tonight, secretly thinking that at least it seems that the official website is reliable now. She then opened her legs and ran all the way to the city. Even though he is only at level 1 now, his physical fitness is not comparable to that of ordinary people. Coupled with the extra movement speed provided by basic movement skills, it is not difficult to run home. Chapter 18, Reality, Is There a Possibility? After returning to the city, Fengxi met Xiao Fan that night in the park downstairs in his community. It was not too late and there was no need to explain to Xiao Fan's parents, so the man in black sent Xiao Fan home and left. After Xiao Fan went upstairs to meet his parents, he excused himself to go to the supermarket downstairs to buy something, then went downstairs to wait for Fengxi in the park. Fengxi didn't let him wait long. When he arrived, the Coke in Xiao Fan's hand was still ice cold. Reaching out to grab the Coke he threw, Fengxi opened it and took a sip, then asked casually. The other party didn't notice any clues about our cell phone conversation, right? Xiao Fan shook his head. I never took out my phone during the whole process, there's no way he could find out. That's good. Fengxi said and then asked, now that you have joined the official team, what do you think? Xiao Fan was still a little excited at this time, but what he said made Fengxi stunned for a moment. The first time I really came into contact with the extraordinary circle, it was just like what was written in the novel. I am still a little excited, but what I am happiest about is that there are companions in this world who can fight side by side, instead of saving the world alone. By the way, you should have heard that there are also enlightened beings who can help ordinary people awaken, so things will be much simpler. Madman, just wait. I will perform well and help you get a place to awaken the day after tomorrow. By then, you will also become a transcendent. We two brothers will fight side by side to save the world. Seeing his silly expression excitedly thinking about the future, Fengxi was silent for a moment. He didn't expect that Xiao Fan's first thought was to help him, and he would definitely be lying if he said he wasn't moved. However, there has never been any pretense between the brothers, so he did not say any words of gratitude, but suddenly said bluntly. There's no need to help me awaken. Just practice and become stronger yourself. Xiao Fan was stunned when he heard this. Huh? Don't you want to become a transcendent? Fengxi asked back, is there a possibility that I already am? Xiao Fan's eyes widened, and then he said in shock, what did you say? Did you also? Fengxi nodded calmly, yes, in fact, that night on the weekend, I also heard the sound of the apocalypse. F***K. Then you didn't tell me? Fengxi actually considered telling him so early, but she kept it secret before because she wasn't sure if there was any problem with the authorities. Now that Xiao Fan is sure that he is safe, he has no reason to continue to hide it. In this case, he should tell the truth frankly, otherwise wouldn't it look like he was sorry for his brother's kindness? Now that she heard him ask, Fengxi told him all her previous thoughts and worries. After listening, Xiao Fan was silent for a moment and then said hesitantly, "Madman, are you a little too sensitive? Forget it, there is nothing wrong with being careful, you are also thinking about me." He himself skipped the topic, became excited again, and suggested, "Then you should be sure that there is no problem with the officialdom now, right? Since you have also awakened, why not join the officialdom too, so that we can work and fight together in the future?" However, Fengxi shook her head and refused. "I will abide by the rules and find time to register with the official, but I will not join the official." "Why?" "For freedom." "No, buddy, you. If we are brothers, don't try to persuade us. I think it will be more convenient for us to do things in the future if we are an official and an independent person. Just because we don't work together doesn't mean we can't fight together." Seeing Fengxi's firm attitude, Xiao Fan also knew that no one could change his decision, so he could only accept it with regret. Then he rolled his eyes, thought of something again, and asked curiously, "Okay, I can't persuade you, but what is your awakened talent? Can you tell me?" Fengxi thought for a while, but did not mention the alien clone technique, but just said, "My talent is called Weapon Master. I can easily control various weapons. I can use any weapon at my fingertips. I can quickly become a martial arts master. Each attack also brings additional damage. It is a pure combat talent. This is not a lie. Weapon Master is indeed a talent he possesses, and it is also activated through the method of apocalypse, but it is not the apocalypse of this world. Fengxi, no one stipulates that a person can only have one talent, right?" "What? It's stipulated? This is what the laws of the world stipulate?" "Sorry, the laws of the world restrict other people and have no effect on cheaters. I have obtained the power to negate the laws of the world from outside the world. This is very reasonable, right?" Xiao Fan didn't know the hidden thoughts in his heart, and was still listening attentively. After Fengxi finished speaking, he waited for a while, but found that he seemed to have really finished speaking, and suddenly frowned with a strange expression on his face. "That's it?" He stuck out his butt and Fengxi knew whether he was going to fart or fly. At this time, she had an insight into his thoughts and calmly replied, "That's it." Xiao Fan suddenly showed a stern expression on his face and said with a sinister smile, "Brother, your talent is not as good as mine." Fengxi was not used to him, and sneered, "Really? Do you believe that I can easily beat you now?" Xiao Fan quickly took 2 steps back and said harshly, "That only means that your ability is advantageous in the early stage. At most, you have some combat effectiveness at the beginning. Your potential is definitely not as good as my space talent. In the later stage, the gap between us will become wider. I advise you now quickly flatter me and call me Big Brother, I won't care about your offense." Fengxi smiled, took out a 30 centimeters long steel ruler from her waist, and walked towards him with a sneer. "What you said makes sense, so you might as well let me measure your depth." "Damn it! Where did you take it out? Is it still smelly? The collateral damage you are talking about is mental, right?" Xiao Fan was startled, turned around and ran away after complaining, "Well, it's getting late. I'm going to bed. You should go back early too. See you tomorrow." "Don't go, don't you want to be my brother? Come on, brother, let me flatter you." "No need, brother, you are my brother, okay? No. No. Don't come over." "Brother, what are you doing?" Just as the two were chasing each other, a female voice suddenly sounded, interrupting their commotion. The two of them looked back and saw a young girl with long flowing hair, pure and lovely, and a gentle smile standing not far away, looking at them obediently and curiously. The girl is about 28 years old, but she looks more mature than her peers, a little less green and a little more elegant. Even before she was an adult, she was already very beautiful, well-behaved and at the same time had a gentle temperament that is hard to see nowadays. Just standing there made people feel extraordinarily beautiful. Chapter 19, Reality, Xiao Ninger. After seeing the girl in front of him, Xiao Fan immediately became serious, looking like a gentleman and a good brother, and asked with a smile. Ninger, why are you down here? Xiao Ninger replied, my parents were a little worried when they saw you hadn't come back for a long time, so I thought about coming down and taking a look. As she said that, she turned to look at Feng Shi, who was beside her brother. Her big, watery eyes lit up slightly, and she said hello playfully. Brother Feng, good evening. Are you here to play with me? Feng Shi also became familiar with this good brother's precious sister, and greeted her with a natural smile. Xiao Ninger is at home too. Didn't you stay on campus today? I went out for a night run and returned the ruler I borrowed from your brother. As he said that, he naturally put the steel ruler he bought to use as a dagger into Xiao Fan's arms. Xiao Fan picked it up with a bit of disgust, and leaned closer to smell it with his sister behind his back. His expression was so mean that Feng Shi rolled her eyes. Xiao Ninger responded with a smile, well, the school dormitory is installing air conditioners these days. It can't be accommodated anymore. I want to come back and stay for a few days. As she spoke, she extended the invitation very naturally, with a hint of shyness in her generosity. Brother Feng, I'm at home these days. Come and play at home after school. I learned a few dishes from my mother and wanted to ask you to try them. My mother said that you haven't come to our house for dinner in a long time, so I wanted to ask my brother to. I'll tell you someday. When Feng Shi heard this, she couldn't help but sigh in her heart. She is beautiful, well-educated, sensible, obedient and well-behaved, and has such a pleasant voice. Now she has learned to cook at a young age. This kind of girl can only be found in dreams. I never expected that he would see her live in reality. But he also knew that there was a reason why this girl was so sensible. She was the child born after his brother was abducted. Zhao's father and Zhao's mother could not let go of their abducted son. A few years after giving birth to her, they fostered her in her aunt's house and began their long journey to find her son again. She was brought up by her gentle aunt since she was a child, and she was taught to be considerate of her parents. When she got older, her parents loved her even more in order to make up for their debt to her, but she often saw the painful look of her parents feeling dejected for their missing brother. This made the little girl who cared about her parents become more sensible. She never acted like a monster and caused trouble to her parents. She learned to be considerate of her family at a young age. Later, when Xiao Fan was found, she was truly happy for her parents, and sincerely accepted this brother she had never met before, and took the initiative to get closer to Xiao Fan. After getting along for several years, although they didn't go from close to mutual dislike like normal siblings, they still got along very well. She respected her brother from the bottom of her heart, and Xiao Fan, who had longed for family since childhood, fell in love with this well-behaved, sensible, gentle and considerate sister, and wanted to die. In the eyes of outsiders, their family is simply too nice, a bit too stereotyped. Maybe it's because they have lost each other that they cherish them so much. All in all, although this family has experienced hardships, it can be considered a happy family now, and all the hardships have come to an end. Feng Shi and Xiao Fan became best friends after they reunited. They often visited his home during the 3 years of high school, so naturally they got to know her. During this period, some bad things happened, which intensified the relationship between the two parties. The thing is also very cliché, just because she is beautiful and too sensible and well-behaved, she looks like she is easy to bully, so she was bullied by a group of mentally twisted little girls and bad students in school, who spread rumors and bullying, going too far. She was afraid of causing trouble to her family, so she endured it all the time, hiding it in her heart and enduring it silently. It was Xiao Fan who noticed something was wrong with her, so he took Feng Shi to investigate secretly. When he found out, he was so angry that he almost wanted to fight those dogs. Feng Shi stopped him forcibly and took the initiative to help. During this period, she put in a lot of effort, not only being ruthless but also using some dirty tricks to clean up those blind dogs and help her solve the problem. Later, she felt very grateful to Feng Shi, and gradually began to treat him as an older brother. Feng Shi also likes this sensible little sister very much. She has no family around her, so she naturally loves her as her own sister. After all, every time we meet, he is sweetly called brother. Even if he is a middle-aged uncle with a mentality of 2 lifetimes, his heart of stone will soften. Feng-shi felt that she could not refuse her earnest invitation, so she simply agreed. Okay. Little Ninger is so awesome, and she even learned how to cook. You said so, and I will definitely support you. Just tomorrow, I'll come over tomorrow. Hearing this, Xiao Ninger smiled sweetly and said, okay. It's settled then. I'll tell my mother when I get back. Don't make it too grand or cause trouble. If you cook some luxurious dinner, I won't dare to use my chopsticks. It's just a common meal. I don't know how to cook a big meal yet. I'll treat Brother Feng to it when I learn how. Little girl, you are quite confident. Okay, then I will wait for your feast. Feng-shi finished speaking with a smile and then said goodbye. It's getting late, I'm going back first. You can go upstairs and rest early. Xiao Ninger smiled and waved. Brother Feng, be careful on the road, see you tomorrow. Feng-shi waved her hand, turned around and gave her a graceful look as she left. After he walked away, Xiao Fan next to him looked at his sister's unwillingness to look back and joked. Ninger, I think it's going to turn into a Wang Fu stone. Why don't you just follow him and stay at his house? Xiao Ninger blushed, lowered her head and said coquettishly, Brother, what are you talking about? Xiao Fan got even more excited and joked with a wicked smile. Don't you know what I said? Haven't the little thoughts in your heart been exposed a long time ago? Who asked me to help create opportunities last time? And who started planning early on how to date someone during the summer vacation? Going on a trip? All your courage is wasted. Why are you so shy with me now? I won't tell my parents. You still said that. Don't worry. As long as you get good grades in the final exam, brother, I promise to take care of the summer vacation for you. I will take care of everything from your parents and crazy people. This is what we agreed before. Brother, I will always let you go. It's in my heart. I told you to stop talking. Brother, you are getting more and more annoying now. If I had known, I wouldn't have asked you for help. I won't tell you anymore, I'm going to bed. You, don't forget yourself, just say it. Humph. Yo. You didn't forget to remind me of this. It's true that women are not allowed to stay in college. But then again, Ninger, don't be too impatient. You are still young after all. You have to take your time with this kind of thing. Normally you still have to pay attention to propriety and scale. As a girl, sometimes you have to be a little more reserved and patient. Anyway, I have your brother watching over you, and this kid can't escape your grasp. Xiao Fan. If you keep talking, I will really ignore you. Hey. Don't. Why don't you stop if I don't say anything? Don't be angry. Chapter 20, Professional Change, the Fighting God Inheritance is delivered. The next few days were peaceful and fulfilling. Feng-shi calmed down and continued to go to school during the day. At night, she secretly ran to the forest behind Longshan district to catch possible extraordinary creatures by herself. Occasionally I go to Xiao Fan's house as a guest and have a dinner full of family atmosphere. The only thing that made Feng-shi a little dissatisfied was that he was in the Air Force these days. Most of the time I fished all night without a single fish biting the hook. After a few days, I only encountered one demonized wild boar that had been infected for a short period of time. This wild boar had rough skin and rough flesh, and would run away if it felt something was wrong. It took him a lot of effort to kill it, but the extraordinary source of energy he got was not as good as the black-skinned monster he killed the first time. The angry Feng-shi cut the wild boar into pieces on the spot, took it back to give extra meals to the children in the orphanage, and even gave a pig leg to the Xiao family. This also allowed Feng-shi to know the approximate number of extraordinary creatures in the real world. It seems that even in the Longshan Villa area where extraordinary people gather, extraordinary creatures are not recruited every day. What the man in black calls frequently is only compared to normal urban areas. With this monster spawning efficiency, he didn't even know when he would be able to create a second alien clone. Disappointed, Feng-shi could only temporarily calm down and improve his strength by practicing cold weapons. he found that the skill proficiency he had gained from practicing as the main body was also effective on the clone. In this case, he and the clone were equal. Individual cultivation speeds can be superimposed and shared, which further improves the cultivation efficiency of both parties. While practicing his weapon skills, he also took time to prepare for the college entrance exam. He thought that after completing the exam, he would take advantage of the vacation to travel and see if there were any better places to farm monsters across the country. Fortunately, after becoming a transcendent, his mind has become much more flexible. His already not bad grades have become even better. He should be able to get good scores in the exam. There are more schools to choose from. If he does find more monsters, there is a place where you can fill in your wishes. Of course, he has another option, which is not to go to college. But he hasn't thought about this yet, because if he doesn't go, the dean who has been raising him will definitely not agree. Moreover, he did not go to college in his previous life, which felt quite regretful, and he had been planning to make up for it in this life. The specific choice will be made after the holiday. Feng Shi feels that she can consider it slowly and is not in a hurry. Compared with the real world, where the main body is limited by the environment of heaven and earth and has no breakthrough in strength, Feng Shi, the alien clone in the sky world, has gained a lot during this period, and his strength has improved by leaps and bounds, even forcing his private instructor group to express admiration. Due to the tense war situation, the training time for new warriors is only about a month. Newcomers have to practice at least one basic skill to the proficient level during the training period, and they also have to successfully master several initial combat skills of their profession. Time is still very tight. However, it had only been more than 10 days, and even half of the training time had passed. Feng Shi had already upgraded the more than 10 basic skills they taught to the proficiency level. The proficiency of many skills has even reached the highest level of mastery level, and it only takes one experience to reach the level of mastery level. However, what they don't know is that Feng Shi has not only a dozen skills that have reached the proficiency level, but dozens of them. In his skill bar, except for skills such as riding, trap breaking, and basic meditation that do not receive talent bonuses, all other skills have been trained to the mastery level. Even Yin Liyue, who knew that he secretly practiced more at night, was not very clear about this, because she did not know how many kinds of strange weapons Feng Shi had practiced, and she only felt that there was not much time to practice these weapons, and at most they could be practiced to the entry level. That's all. Even so, the instructors lamented more than once that Feng Shi's progress was too fast, lamenting that their harsh devil training actually produced an unreasonable monster newcomer. Later, they actually felt like they had nothing to teach. Of course, this does not mean that Feng Shi has learned all their skills. They only teach basic things, and there are still many real active combat skills. However, most of the learning of these skills has a learning threshold of level or basic strength. If the threshold is not reached and forced to learn, it will only hurt the body during the training process and turn the genius into a waste. So later on, after they had almost imparted their experience and understanding of basic skills, the content of the course became to compete with Feng Shi and teach him tricks. Feng Shi doesn't dislike this either. This method is also beneficial to him. The proficiency gained through actual combat is obviously more. If it is a life and death battle, the cultivation efficiency will be even higher. In the Sky Realm, Human Race Bunker number 7, somewhere in the underground river. Feng Shi was dressed in iron clothes and armor, holding a giant sword more than 2 meters long and resembling a door panel. He stood at the bottom of the river without any light. He closed his eyes and felt the changes in water flow and water pressure while waving the giant sword to move the river. The water at the bottom was churning violently. He stood in the center of the undercurrent. Although he didn't have any diving equipment, he didn't show any pain. His chest even rose and fell, as if he could breathe in the water, and he didn't appear to be lacking oxygen at all. The next moment, he suddenly opened his eyes, shouted loudly in the water, suddenly swung the giant sword in his hand, and made more than a dozen powerful and heavy slashes, rolling the river surface into layers of huge waves, hitting the nearby people. On the rock wall, rubble fell from the hard stone wall. Looking at Feng Shi's position again, he saw that he had already revealed his figure, as if the surrounding river water had been temporarily drained by him. Before the river water could flow back, he had already jumped up and jumped to the river bank with his giant sword. At this point, he took a deep breath, panted slightly, and then opened the panel, showing a bit of joy. Finally, the vast sea breathing technique has been practiced to the proficiency level, and the proficiency level of giant sword specialization is also full. It is only one enlightenment away from reaching the realm of great achievement. Pa pa pa. Several rounds of applause rang out, and Inliue walked over with a smile on her lips and admiration in her eyes. Congratulations, you have been able to practice a breathing method without talent bonus to the proficiency level in such a short period of time. You really make me have to praise you. Your efforts have been recognized by me. According to the agreement, I will teach you an additional unique combat skill that you may learn at this stage in the remaining time. Actually, if your breathing technique has not reached the proficiency level, you will not be able to meet the minimum learning threshold of this combat skill, and forcing you to learn it will only make you injured. But the ugliness comes first. You have just barely met the training qualifications for this combat skill. Long-range sword energy slashing itself is not something that low-level combatants should think about. Even if you can't learn it, I can't blame you. On my head. After hearing this, Fengshi just smiled broadly and said, "Students know, teacher, just teach me. If I can't learn it, it just means I'm not qualified. In any case, I can't blame the teacher. I'm very grateful that you are willing to teach me." When Inliue heard this, she looked at him with a half-smile and joked. "Hey, it's rare to hear such words from your mouth. So you are also able to respect your teacher?" Fengshi immediately retorted with a cheeky smile. "Teacher, what are you talking about? The students have always respected you and the other instructors. The offense at the beginning was just a little trick from the students. Teacher, you are a legendary powerhouse, so you shouldn't care about a little shrimp like me, right?" Inliue did not hold any grudge against him, she just said casually. "You've already said everything, what else can I care about?" With that said, she turned around and greeted, "Let's go back to school. Your city lord just sent a message that your god of fighting inheritance has been delivered." When Fengshi heard this, her eyes suddenly lit up and she became obviously excited. "Oh. That's really great. You are listening to it in Eugene light novels.